The story begins when a treasure map appears in the world, pointing to Mount Hyang. In this location, the martial arts of Miram's greatest celestial Kia master were said to be hidden. Along with the techniques, there was also a secret weapon he left behind. Then, a crow lets out a loud call, as if announcing the awakening of something great. The bird then takes flight, and with that, the Moram, which had been quiet for a long time, was about to be stirred. This treasure map would be the trigger for a new era of conflict and quests for power. Suddenly, a powerful energy is released from the mountaintop, shaking everything around it. The light fades, revealing the calm landscape once again, as if nothing had happened. However, a dark shadow begins to form on the mountainside, indicating a presence. This presence descends at high speed and hits the ground, kicking up a cloud of dust. In the middle of the smoke, we can see the entrance to a cave that was hidden there, and emerging from the darkness, a mysterious silhouette appears from inside the cave. The first thing we see clearly is the gleaming blade of his sword. Then, a black-haired man finally steps out of the cave and says that he is free. He has a serious and determined look, as if he were focused on some goal. Looking up at the sky, the young man comments that it was always blue, feeling nostalgic. He tries to remember his life before entering the cave but can't recall anything. Even so, the young man decides he needs to remember everything he can because he has a clear goal in mind, and that goal is to get his revenge. His first memory is from when he was 10 years old, and an old man claimed to be the celestial QI master. The master tells the 100 children that in 10 years, they will have to save the world. Our protagonist was one of these 100 children who were gathered by the master. He remembers the old man's cold eyes and the order for everyone to obey him. The master then announces that the martial arts training will begin tomorrow. Back then, the boy didn't feel afraid, and he believes it was because he was an orphan. With that, the master turns to give a warning to anyone thinking of escaping. With a frightening smile, he says that the cave entrance has been blocked by a cliff. From that moment on, a very strict martial arts training began. The first technique they learned was a special breathing method. This was a key art that absorbed both celestial and terrestrial energy at the same time. Next, they learned the 3 powers sword art and a movement method. About 3 years later, the master called them and said that his arts would lead to the realm of a martial god. For the next 7 years, each of them was to completely master the martial arts. He points to a door and orders everyone to enter to train and prevent a calamity. Then, the master tells them to train freely inside that door, and so, all the children obey and enter through the door without hesitation. At that moment, a bright light shines on our hero's face as he understands everything. It finally became clear to him why they had to endure that horrible place. And all of this was part of the plan of that old man, with an evil smile on his face. The mist filling the cave was condensed Q, and the energy distorted space. Suddenly, from the total darkness, some strange and frightening creatures emerge. They were monsters with horns and red eyes that left the children terrified. Besides the creatures, there were also several skeletons and demonic beasts ready to attack. Next, a giant skeletal serpent lunges at the youths, unleashing a devastating attack. That day, it was as if the gates of the underworld had opened right in front of them. One of the boys then shouts for everyone to grab their swords and prepare to fight. Our protagonist wastes no time and charges at the creatures with his sword. Every day in that place was a nightmare, and they needed to fight to survive. The forced training made everyone stronger and more skilled in combat. But even so, the fight for survival was brutal, and many did not make it. However, the martial arts the master taught were very powerful and effective. The techniques progressed much faster than when they trained in the misty cave. But in the end, only our protagonist managed to get out of that nightmare alive. Before passing on, a friend asks Hyong Woo to survive at all costs. The young man then reveals that his full name is actually Dan Hyong Woo. After escaping that place, he goes to a bustling city full of people. Several people are walking towards a large building in the city center. Inside a tavern, several customers are eating and drinking peacefully at their tables. At that moment, Hyung Woo enters the place and observes the surroundings with a serious gaze. Then, a beautiful woman named Jo Seleon, daughter of the Jo clan chief, appears on the scene. With that, the young woman's gaze focuses in one direction, and she seems to have noticed something unusual. One of the men beside her draws attention to the protagonist, who has sat down alone. Everyone notices that the young man is carrying a sword without a sheath, which was quite strange. The girl's brother, named Jo-in, comments that the sword seems to be of excellent quality. Meanwhile, a plate of noodles is served to our hero, who had ordered a meal. The swordsman stares at the food and wonders how long it's been since he's seen something like it. He then picks up some noodles with his chopsticks, preparing to finally eat. The food melts in his mouth, and the young man's expression shows how much he enjoyed the flavor. Seeing the scene, other customers get a craving and also order a bowl of noodles. The young Seleon becomes thoughtful and can't take her eyes off the mysterious man. She wonders why she is so bothered by the presence of that stranger. The waiter then asks if he enjoyed the food, and the young man confirms that it was delicious. At this, the attendant gets a little confused by the customer's intense reaction. Then he holds out his hand and says the bill is 5 pun, awaiting payment. The protagonist seems to have forgotten something very important, and he says the word money. After years in isolation, he had completely forgotten how the world worked. He finally remembers that in the normal world, you have to pay for the things you consume. Seeing the delay, the waiter gets nervous and says that if he ate, he needs to pay for the food. The swordsman then calmly replies that he doesn't have any money with him at the moment. The attendant sighs and demands that the young man hand over his sword as payment. With a firm gaze, the protagonist refuses to give his weapon to the attendant. He then explains that the sword was exchanged for the life of his last friend. The waiter becomes furious and accuses the young man of planning to eat for free from the start. At this, the commotion draws the attention of the other customers, who stand up to intimidate him. Suddenly, the girl's brother shouts her name, startled by the actions she took. The young woman then holds out a money pouch and asks them to stop bothering the man. With a gentle smile, she offers to pay the stranger's bill and resolve the situation. The attendant is surprised by the noble lady's action and recognizes her immediately. Then the girl approaches, and the two exchange a silent glance in the middle of the tavern. The young man wonders why she is paying for him and what he should say in this situation. Looking closely, she notices his eyes are like those of a child seeing the world for the first time. The swordsman remains silent, not knowing how to react to the young woman's kind gesture. Without a word, the protagonist simply turns and starts walking toward the exit. The young woman is confused because she was sure he was about to say something. The man then leaves the establishment, leaving the attendant and the other customers completely bewildered. Everyone is surprised that the young man simply left without even looking back. The waiter is indignant because he didn't even say thank you for the help he received. Her brother calls him ungrateful and comments that he really didn't have any money. Jo-in then asks if that's all there is to it, and notes that the young man doesn't seem to have any internal energy. But the young woman becomes thoughtful and says to herself that his sword was truly incredible. In that instant, the young woman has a sudden realization about the mysterious man's sword. She comments that the weapon was clearly a renowned blade, but carrying it without a sheath could cause him trouble. So the young woman decides she will follow him, as he definitely needs a sheath for his sword. Once outside, the protagonist reflects on the action of the girl who paid for his meal. With a faint smile, he regrets not having thanked her for the kind gesture. Meanwhile, the scene takes us to a place called the Drunken Clouds Pavilion. Inside, several warriors from the Miram Alliance are gathered and talking among themselves. Someone comments that the Alliance's influence is truly remarkable in the region. Seleon, who is also at the location, observes that the city of Changsha is full of their warriors. Her brother agrees, saying he never imagined the Alliance leader himself would make a move. An older man named Sima Chil explains this is due to the demonic cult and the Green Forest, because for such a large force to move like this, it can only be because of a legendary reputation, and that reputation belonged to Cheongija, the greatest eccentric in Muram's history. They say he had extraordinary talent and profound knowledge of celestial arts. This figure was an imposing and mysterious master whose power was difficult to comprehend. Cheonjija created a technique called the lightning shadow blade that shook the world. His technique used a unique method involving complex mechanical formations. He then passed on his arts to a wanderer, and in 3 years, turned him into an absolute master. However, the warrior became a public enemy and met a tragic end, which made Cheonjija disappear. Now, the Joe Mansion has found the map with his techniques, and that's why all of Muram is after it. Her brother then says that since they are here at the Lord's request, nothing should happen, but they need to be cautious. Meanwhile, the young woman thinks that in this world, the most unexpected things can happen. At that moment, her brother asks if she is going to follow the wanderer and says he is against the idea. He argues that the man has nothing to do with her and is a rude person with no basic manners. The young woman tries to protest and defend her decision to help the mysterious swordsman. Sima Chil agrees with the young man, saying it's dangerous to go out alone now because the alliance leader will be arriving. With her head lowered, the girl remains silent, seeming disappointed by the prohibition. She then agrees to follow their wishes, while the protagonist walks through the streets. Passing by a stall, he watches 2 people negotiating the price of a product. In another corner, a man plays a flute for a family who applauds him joyfully. The swordsman observes the peaceful scene and feels touched by the tranquility of the moment. Next, he sees a mother buying a gift for her son at a toy stall. The boy thanks his mother with a big smile and a look of pure happiness. This scene makes the protagonist look up at the sky and get lost in his past memories. He remembers his friend Casey, Jai telling them to run away and do everything they never could. The friend then asks Hyung Woo to promise him one more thing before they leave. Casey G asks him to visit his home and tell his father about everything that happened. The protagonist replies that his friend himself should get out of there and tell his father everything. With a smile, the young man agrees and says he will tell his father himself when he gets out. Then, with a serious look, the friend asks Hyung Woo to survive at all costs. The protagonist then agrees with his friend, and they both prepare to survive another day. But in a moment of distraction, something terrible happens to AKC Jai during the battle. Seeing a monster behind him, the friend desperately shouts for Hyung Woo to be careful. With a tear in his eye, the swordsman turns and notices the danger too late to react. Then, the sound of something being pierced echoes through the cave, and everything turns red for an instant. The friend threw himself in front of the attack and ended up taking the decisive blow in his place. Desperate, the protagonist asks why he saved him and sacrificed himself that way. He asks his companion to get up, reminding him they promised to visit his father together. In his final words, the young man says he was the strongest and asks him to survive and tell his father. The friend then apologizes, and his body begins to dissolve into a bright light. And so, our hero's freedom was bought with the lives of 99 friends. Looking at the moon, he acknowledges that he owes a great debt to all those who are gone. He then makes a promise that he will collect this debt directly from Cheonjija. Back in the present, the protagonist's feet suddenly stop in front of a familiar place. He had walked without thinking and end up back at the same tavern where he was earlier. The young man then looks inside the establishment with a hint of surprise on his face. He sees the girl and wonders if she is still there, remembering he didn't thank her. In the background, a conversation about Mount Hyong immediately catches the swordsman's attention. He notices a large group of warriors preparing to leave on a mission. One of the leaders warns that if they don't rest, they will arrive in 1 day, and orders everyone to keep up the pace. All the warriors respond at once and set off at high speed through the city's streets. The protagonist watches all the movement with a serious and thoughtful gaze under the moonlight. Then he notices that the girl who helped him at the tavern is also going with the group. From a rooftop, the young man concludes that the young woman is also part of that mysterious mission. With that, he leaps from the roof and wonders where they are going in such a hurry. Under the starry sky, the night runs its course as the warriors advance toward their destination. The Murim Alliance group then pauses to rest at the entrance to Mount Hyong. Hidden, the swordsman wonders if they are heading to the same place he just left. He deduces that their destination is the cave and tries to understand what they are looking for there. Two men are talking, and one of them is worried about the demonic cult's movements. But the Alliance's strategist, named Jigar Jung Cheon, tells the leader not to worry so much. The leader, Doko Woon, replies that perhaps his intuition is failing due to his age. Meanwhile, the young Salian looks tired, and a young man approaches her with a smile. Vice Captain Peng Cheel, Young suggests she rest and offers to speak with the leader. She refuses the help and asks him to leave her alone while her brother watches the scene. Suddenly, a group of muscular men with intimidating appearances emerges from the darkness. With an evil smile, their leader says he has finally found the Morim Alliance. This man is Seo Heil Gui, the chief of the Green Forest's small peak fortress. The Alliance leader wastes no time and orders everyone to prepare for combat. The strategist then warns that members of the demonic cult seem to have joined the enemy. The Alliance leader recognizes that the enemy is a formidable and very dangerous master. With that, the villain shouts if they want a taste of battle and charges forward. The fortress chief advances with a powerful kick and knocks down one of the Alliance warriors. He moves with agility and faces several opponents at once without difficulty. With another precise blow, the enemy sends another warrior flying with a forceful kick. The battle becomes intense, and the Alliance members quickly start to take heavy losses. The enemy's power is devastating, and many warriors fall one after another in combat. At that moment, someone prepares to enter the fray and put an end to the mess. The villain then says he's already taken care of the small fry and now wants the main course. The Alliance leader then springs into action and begins to fight bravely against the enemies. Another enemy with an evil smile shouts the leader's name and challenges him to a duel. Then the two leaders face off in an epic battle in the middle of the dark forest. Their swords clash forcefully, creating sparks and showing the power of both. Meanwhile, the other members of the Green Forest are overpowering the Alliance warriors. The leader realizes their disadvantage and complains that they are outnumbered in the battle. The villain mocks the situation, saying that Cheongija's secret weapon belongs to them. Hidden, our protagonist hears the name Cheongija, and his expression changes completely. Determined to intervene, he leaps into action, sword in hand, ready to fight. He then uses his sword to break a large rock that was on the ground near him. With a quick movement, the swordsman hurls the piece of rock toward the villains. The swordsman advances into the middle of the battle with his powerful and surprising attack. The rock hits the villain squarely, catching him by surprise in the middle of combat. With a leap, the protagonist lands in the midst of the enemies and sends them flying. He then spins his sword and creates a whirlwind of energy that strikes everyone around. The Alliance warriors are shocked by the stranger's appearance and power. The leader and the young Salian look at the young man, not understanding what is happening. The other Alliance members are also surprised by the man's strength. With a cold gaze, the protagonist then asks aloud where Cheonjija is. The Alliance leader wonders where he came from, as he didn't sense his presence before. The leader thanks him for his help, but reveals that Cheonjija passed away 10 years ago. Upon hearing the news, the swordsman is shocked and can't believe what he's heard. He wonders if the celestial Q master is truly no longer in this world. With this, the young man remembers he still hasn't collected the debt for his friends' lives. The word, gone, echoes in his mind, and he is paralyzed by the revelation. A green and dark aura suddenly begins to emanate from the protagonist's body. The Alliance warriors feel the energy and are confused about what is happening. The aura of the Kai Void flows from Dan Hongd, Wu's body without him realizing it. The aura flowing from the young man's body plunges the Alliance warriors into a sensation of loss. He thinks that he endured that awful place only to find out his target for revenge is gone. He remembers the promise he made to his friends to tell their families what happened. The spirits of his friends cry out for vengeance, saying their departures were unjust. The Alliance leader then recognizes the young man's energy as the feared QI of the Void. He becomes worried because if this continues, Everyone there could suffer a cue deviation. Suddenly, the protagonist calms down and asks if everyone is all right, surprising them all. Then he focuses on the girl and remembers that he followed her because of the kindness she showed. In a flashback, a friend hands him his sword and asks him to survive at all costs. With the celestial master out of reach, he realizes he needs to focus on something else. Therefore, the young man decides he will find his friends' families to fulfill his promise. With that, the Alliance warriors feel their fatigue disappear and wonder what happened. The leader is shocked that the QI of the void has stopped and questions the young man's identity. The swordsman then turns and walks toward the young woman who helped him at the tavern. He stands in front of the young woman as if he wants to say something important to her. The girl then asks if by any chance he is looking for someone in this region. She turns to an older man and says that this gentleman helped them in the battle. With a sweet look, she asks for the young man to travel with them until he finds who he's looking for. The older man becomes thoughtful and seems to consider the young woman's request carefully. He thinks it's hard to refuse their savior, but fears the Alliance leader's reaction. The Alliance leader also becomes thoughtful and analyzes the situation with a serious gaze. He concludes that the young man is dangerous because he took out 2 sects with a single blow. Having lost many men, the leader decides it's better to keep him close. With a confident smile, the Alliance leader approves the idea of taking the young man along. The group then gathers around the protagonist to talk with him about the future. The older man then invites him to work at his escort agency. The other warriors comment that working at the hidden escort agency is a great offer. The swordsman gets a thoughtful look and seems to be analyzing the proposal carefully. The girl's brother insists that not just anyone can work there and he shouldn't refuse. The protagonist then replies that he would like to accept, but he doesn't know what an agency is. Everyone is shocked by his answer, and the young woman offers to explain everything to him. She says it's a place that transports goods and protects clients, but the leader regrets his decision. 2 warriors watch the scene and mockingly call the hero a country bumpkin. One of them comments to the other about the sword the young man carries and its strange aura. The protagonist's sword emanates a powerful and mysterious blue aura that draws attention. The 2 of them think such a good sword is a waste in the hands of that talentless guy. With an evil smile, they plan to make a move when they enter Mount Heng to steal the weapon. Then the sun rises, and a new day begins for the group on their journey to the mountain. The group finally arrives at their destination, the imposing and mysterious Mount Heng. The Alliance leader comments that the place has a very strange and sinister atmosphere. The protagonist observes the mountain in silence, along with the other Alliance warriors. He wonders if that is the place they have been searching for all this time. The leader is excited to see the secret manual, but a subordinate says they haven't found the cave. The Alliance warriors climb the mountain, but can't find the cave's entrance. One of the leaders suggests digging into the mountain, but the other fears it might damage the manual. The protagonist then thinks to himself that the exit he used has collapsed and no longer exists. He then concentrates and manages to feel a faint energy coming from a specific point. The swordsman points in a direction and states with certainty that the entrance is right there. He then runs toward the location, surprising all the Alliance warriors. The young man leaps and climbs the mountainside with impressive agility. He then stops in front of a spot hidden among the mountain rocks. With a serious look, the protagonist tells everyone that this is the entrance to the cave. The Alliance leader is shocked and asks how he knows the way to the cave. The swordsman then reveals that he knows the way because that place was where he used to live. The young Silion is surprised by the revelation and looks at him with an air of astonishment. The 2 mocking warriors conclude that he lived like a wild man in the mountains. The Alliance leader then gives the orders for the search and divides the exploration teams. All the warriors respond at once and prepare to enter the cave. The leader and the strategist thank the protagonist for his help and for showing the way. The young man then warns that they won't find anything of value inside that cave. He says the only thing that exists in there is something very dark and dangerous. With a melancholic gaze, he reveals that the cave is filled with memories of departure. The cave entrance emanates a dark and sinister aura, as if it were a portal to the void. The Alliance leader touches the young man's shoulder and asks him not to get any more involved in this. He then shouts for everyone to go, and they enter the cave while the hero watches everything. Alone outside, the swordsman stands in silence, observing the landscape with a distant gaze. Suddenly, the young Xiaolian approaches him carefully, stepping on a rock. With curiosity, she asks if the mysterious young man really lived in that place. The protagonist just nods his head in a gesture of confirmation without saying a word. At that moment, a warrior pulls the girl away from him with a certain aggressiveness. With an irritated look, our hero observes the man's rude behavior. The warrior then says there's no guarantee the young man isn't a spy from the Green Forest. The young woman defends him, but the man suggests that the previous fight could have been just an act. With an evil smile, he says that if the young man is innocent, he should hand over his sword to them. The warrior's gaze focuses on the weapon, and he realizes it's more than it appears to be. The sword looks old, but the aura it emanates is something he has never seen in his life. The protagonist grips his weapon and asks if they are ordering him to hand it over. The warrior smiles arrogantly and tells the young man to hand over the sword if he got the message. Xiaolian looks worried as the hero explains that the sword was entrusted to him by a friend. With a firm gaze, he declares that he will not give his weapon to anyone. The two warriors then head up the mountainside and surround the protagonist to intimidate him. But with a calm look, the swordsman doesn't seem the least bit worried by their threat. The man then gives an arrogant smirk and gets ready to attack the young man and steal his weapon. Worried about the situation, the young Xiaolian is held back by her brother, who stops her from interfering. The two warriors then slowly approach the protagonist with looks of pure malice. The hero closes his eyes for a moment and calmly and precisely analyzes the situation. With a focused gaze, he opens his eyes and prepares for the two men's imminent attack. Then, one of the warriors advances from the front, while the other goes from behind to corner him. The two plan to attack at the same time and catch the young man by surprise with a double attack. The swordsman then decides that his best defense is to dodge the first blow and counter-attack. With a swift movement, he ducks down and prepares to strike them both at once. The protagonist's gaze fills with determination as he executes his plan perfectly. The two warriors are surprised by the young man's speed and can't react in time. They try the same attack again, but the swordsman is already one step ahead of them. The two men's plan fails miserably, leaving them exposed to the hero's counter-attack. The warrior then yells at him to hand over the sword if he doesn't want to get seriously hurt by the two of them. With a quick motion, the protagonist places his hand on the hilt of his sword and prepares to fight. His eyes glow with a purple energy, and a powerful aura begins to emanate from his body. Suddenly, a powerful voice yells for them to stop and asks what they think they're doing. Startled, the warrior recognizes the voice and stammers the title of Alliance Leader. The Alliance Leader then emerges from the cave with his men, wearing a grim expression. The strategist approaches and asks if they manage to find anything inside. The other warriors are confused and wonder about Qianji's so-called secret weapon. In an irritated tone, the leader shouts that their work there is done, and that everyone will retreat. The warriors obey immediately and begin to descend the mountain to leave the area. The two men who attacked the hero glare at him and say he got very lucky this time. The young Xiaolian then approaches the young man and worriedly asks if he's okay. With a distant look, he replies that he's not sure what she means by being okay. The young woman is relieved and says she was worried about what could have happened to him. She then realizes they don't know each other's names and introduces herself as Zhou Xiaolian. With a faint smile, the swordsman replies that his name is Dan Haiyang Wu. The girl looks at him with a gentle gaze and says his name is very beautiful and has a nice sound. He then turns and says that they also need to get ready to head back to the city. And so, the Miram Alliance's journey to find the secret weapon came to an unsuccessful end. The scene then shifts to a large city in the Hubei region called Wuhan. On the streets, a man comments that the Miram Alliance found the weapon and will now take over the world. Other people wonder what the weapon could be, but no one knows because the Alliance is keeping it a secret. With that, numerous rumors about the Mirim Alliance began to spread throughout the region. Inside the Alliance headquarters, someone slams their hand on the table with great force, showing their frustration. The leader then complains that even though they're telling the truth, nobody believes there was no weapon. One of the Alliance elders then says that the rumors have spread all over the Hubei region. The leader responds with a serious look that the only things inside the cave were quite different. He then points to a wooden box and a letter that seemed to have been left by Cheonjija. In a flashback, we see the leader and his strategist finding the box inside the dark cave. On the cave floor, the wooden box was on top of a scroll with strange writing. Back at the meeting, one of the elders reads the letter and wonders what the text could mean. With a confused expression, he then reads the term Blue Demon Child and is intrigued. The letter explained that this person was trying to throw the entire martial world into pure chaos. Because of this, the Celestial Chu Master created 100 powerful warriors to prevent this great calamity, and to control these 100 masters, it would be necessary to use the yin-yang drum that was in the box. With a confident smile, the master says that the Blood Demon Child will never get what they desire. The leader then opens the box, revealing a mysterious item called the yin-yang drum. Smoke billows out from inside the box, revealing a glowing sphere that emanates a powerful aura. The leader comments that he has never seen anything like it and doesn't know if he can believe the letter's story. One of the men then asks if he's saying the entire letter is just a load of nonsense. But the leader replies that it actually seems like there's a brilliant mind behind all of this. The strategist agrees and says the Alliance chief has several reasons to be suspicious. First, on the mountain, he felt that the enemy's goal wasn't the weapon, but to harm the Alliance. Furthermore, when they arrived, they found no trace of the enemy, and many bodies had vanished. And to make matters worse, the rumors in the market are growing like an out-of-control snowball. The leader concludes that someone is deliberately drawing the entire martial world's attention to the Alliance. At this, one of the elders gets nervous and asks who would be capable of doing such a thing. The strategist then suggests that the first suspect should be the head of the Zhou family, who brought the map. A man argues that Zhou Haiyan wouldn't do that, but the strategist seems to have another idea. The leader then says there might be a spy in the Zhou family, and they need to send someone to monitor them. He adds that even if they aren't the culprits, they might be helping the traitorous forces. The scene then focuses on the mysterious yin-yang drum that was inside the wooden box. Next, the story takes us to the Zhou family estate, where someone announces the director's return. The older man then approaches and asks if they managed to return safely from the mission. Our hero looks at the enormous house and realizes that this place is home to the girl who helped him. The elder turns and says that he now needs to see the family head to give his report. He then decides that he should first take the young swordsman to the escort agency. Meanwhile, the protagonist observes everything around him until he sees someone. The young Ceolian approaches him and apologizes for not being able to get him a sheath on the way. The young man then thinks that people from the outside world have a strange obsession with sheaths. He explains that it doesn't matter how good the sheath is because it wouldn't be able to withstand his sword's energy. The weapon then emanates a powerful, cutting aura, proving that he was telling the truth. The swordsman concludes that, as expected, he really doesn't need a sheath for his blade. The girl gets embarrassed and apologizes for offering to make a sheath for him for no reason. The protagonist just looks to the side, says he's sorry for everything that happened. In a flashback, his friend says he's sorry, before finally departing from that world. With that, the swordsman wonders why his friend apologized since he was the one passing away. He then questions what exactly his friend was apologizing for in that final moment. Then, with a serious look, he asks the young woman to never apologize to him like that again. The young woman is surprised by the sudden request and the intensity of the mysterious man's words. Suddenly, the older man calls out to him and asks him to come with him to the agency immediately. The protagonist then turns and gets ready to follow the director who called him for the new job. The girl is left wondering if she might have done something wrong. They arrive at a place called the Hanem Escort Agency under the city's night sky. The director then explains that a porter is the name they give to the workers at the agency. Inside the place, we see several men carrying heavy boxes back and forth without stopping. The elder then calls a man named Jong Chil and says he brought the new porter for him. A muscular, sweaty man turns around and asks with a mocking tone if he's a rookie. With a confident smile, Jong Chil tells the director to leave the rookie with him for training. The director seems a little worried and comments that the new friend is a bit rude and hot-headed. The older man then turns to the protagonist and tells him to learn things well around there. With a nod, the director says goodbye and asks the young man to do his best at his new job. Jong Chil then says there are no exceptions, not even for a rookie brought by the director himself. With a wicked smile, he says that if a rookie is there, he needs to be taught a few lessons. The swordsman then calmly replies that his name is Dan Hyong Woo, unfazed by the threat. The muscular man gets irritated and asks why the young man's words are so short and direct. The swordsman then replies that his arms and legs are short and that he has a ridiculous build. All the other workers are shocked by the rookie's audacity and don't know how to react. With that, the brute yells and asks if he's looking to get taken out on his very first day. The protagonist feels the strong hostility coming from the man, and his expression changes completely. A dark aura emanates from his body, and he wonders if he should just put an end to that guy. Suddenly, the muscular man notices that the rookie is carrying a sword and is surprised. He then points and demands that the young man hand over the weapon, as a porter shouldn't have one. With a cold and calm gaze, the swordsman simply says that he cannot give him the sword. A life-ending intent radiates from the protagonist, and the man instantly feels a chill run down his spine. Scared, the brute backs away and says it's getting late, so they should stop for now. The young man then thinks that an unusual number of people have been asking for his sword lately. The other workers mock the man for getting scared by the rookie and say it serves him right. Embarrassed, he yells at everyone and tells them to stop staring and get ready for bed. The protagonist then says goodbye and wishes all the workers a good night's sleep. The muscular man calls him and tells him to follow, as the shared quarters are that way. As he walks, he thinks that if it weren't for that sword, the rookie would be absolutely nothing. With a hateful glare, he vows to get revenge for the humiliation he just endured in front of everyone. Later that night, all the workers are sleeping peacefully in their quarters, but the muscular man sits up in his bed and seems to be plotting something against our hero. The muscular man then gets out of his bed and starts walking silently across the room. He looks for the rookie and says to himself that he must be sleeping around there somewhere. Suddenly, the brute gets a hard slap across the face that sends him flying to the side. With a hand on his face, he wonders if there was a pillar right there in the middle of the path. The man then looks up and sees the dark silhouette of the protagonist standing in front of him. Startled, he falls to the ground and asks if the swordsman wasn't sleeping like the others. But the hero's eyes are closed, and he appears to be in a deep sleep, not moving an inch. The brute is shocked and wonders if the young man can actually sleep soundly while standing up. He then decides this is his chance and reaches out to try and grab the rookie's sword. Suddenly, the protagonist's eyes snap open with an intense and very powerful blue glow. With that, the man freezes his movement, sensing a danger he has never felt in his life. In an instant, the swordsman raises his sword as if he were about to strike the enemy at any moment. The blade gleams in the darkness, and the hero prepares for a fatal blow against the poor man. Jong Chil then screams in terror and feels an overwhelming fear take over his entire body. In his eyes, the reflection of his own end appears, and he believes his time has finally come. But all of this was just a hallucination, and the man is paralyzed with fear on the floor. He then falls backward and begs for his life, asking the young man to spare him from the blow. In reality, the protagonist was just circulating his protective energy while sleeping on his feet. The swordsman didn't always sleep standing up, but he learned to do it the hard way. During his time in the cave, he had to remain vigilant at all times in order to survive. In a flashback, he warns a friend to eat quickly because their enemies were already approaching, and so he developed the habit of sleeping standing up while circulating his energy to protect himself. With that, a new day begins at the agency, and the sun rises on the city's horizon. The protagonist then lets out a sigh and finally awakens from his standing slumber in the room. He looks down at the floor and sees the muscular man lying there with a look of pure terror. Frightened, the brute stammers and can't say a word upon seeing the young man awake. Suddenly, the man screams and runs out of the room, leaving our hero completely confused. Later, one of the workers wakes everyone up and says there's a lot of work to be done. Outside, several wooden crates and carts are waiting to be loaded by the men. With a wave of his hand, the swordsman uses his energy to lift several boxes at once. He then leaps into the air with impressive agility, along with the floating boxes. The young man lands on top of one of the boxes with perfect balance in mid-air. With precise kicks, he begins to quickly stack all the boxes into a large tower. In a matter of seconds, a huge pile of boxes is formed in the agency's courtyard. The protagonist then wonders if this is how it's done and finds the work quite easy. The other workers are left with their jaws dropped, unable to believe what they just saw. He then offers to do the rest of the work by himself, since it was very simple for him. The other workers yell desperately, asking him to be very careful with the boxes. Two men watch the scene and comment that the rookie is no ordinary person and will steal their jobs. Suddenly, the young Seol Yayan appears, and one of the workers asks what she's doing there. The young woman thinks that she ended up following him and remembers the harsh words he said before. She then questions the meaning of those words and admits she couldn't sleep. With a surprised look, the protagonist turns and notices the girl's presence in the courtyard. With a shy smile, she greets him and calls him brother, surprising herself. The young man then explains that he started working as a porter, and she asks if he's comfortable. The girl gets nervous and asks what he likes and dislikes, but realizes that wasn't what she wanted to ask. He replies that he likes peace and hates it. When that peace is broken by something, the girl listens intently to his words as he continues to talk about his feelings. The swordsman then reveals that he hates hearing a friend apologize because it worries him a lot. With a smile, the young woman realizes he considers her a friend and promises never to say that again. Suddenly, the sound of horse hooves echoes through the courtyard, and someone approaches the pair. A man on horseback comments on the coincidence of finding them there at that moment. The young man named Peng Chiel Young compliments the girl's beauty and says she's even more beautiful. Surprised, the girl asks what he's doing there, since he should be busy with other matters. The young man then explains that he came on another, more an alliance mission to support the agency. And just like that, our hero's desire for peace is once again shattered by the world's conflicts. The martial world is then thrown into a whirlwind of blood and great turmoil. In a dark place, a man reports that the entire 30-person unit has been eliminated. The survivor apologizes and says he couldn't find out who was responsible for the attack. A man in the shadows listens to the report and becomes furious, as the unit was very powerful. A hand releases a sinister, reddish energy, showing the power of the story's great villain. With that, several men are thrown into the air by the force of that dark and very powerful aura. The attack is brutal, and the warriors have no chance of defending themselves against such great power. The survivor then reveals that they were all defeated by a single mysterious person. With a wicked smile, the villain says that Cheonjaja created 100 monsters, and he wants to test them now. The scene then takes us to a dark fortress in the middle of the mountains under a purple sky. Inside, one of the men holds a wounded comrade after the enemy's surprise attack. The leader then orders them to investigate everyone who accompanied the Miram Alliance on the mountain. With a furious look, he vows to find out who was responsible for all of it. The scene returns to the agency, where a beautiful sunny day is beginning for the workers. The young Saul Yin observes the courtyard with a thoughtful and slightly worried expression. The young man named Peng Chiel Young compliments her, saying she is truly a rare beauty to behold. But suddenly his gaze shifts, and he focuses his attention on something else in the agency's courtyard. He then wonders why that strange guy is next to the beautiful young lady again. In a mocking tone, he says it's absurd for a porter to walk around with a sword. The girl then warns the young man not to get involved, as his unit represents the Alliance. The young man is shocked to hear the girl call him brother, and doesn't like it one bit. The girl beside him, named Peng Mai Ryong, explains that they came because of her. At that moment, a man approaches our hero and asks if he is Dan Hyong Woo. The swordsman confirms his name, while the young woman beside him seems worried about the situation. The man named Hyung Pio introduces himself and says he came to train the new porter for the mission. The young woman is surprised, as he barely started working and is already being sent on a mission. The young man explains that the job of a porter involves participating in important escort missions. The protagonist says he doesn't know what an escort mission is, but that he can't hand over his sword. With a smile, the man asks him to follow him and comments that the rookie is quite informal. The vice leader mocks the young man and asks what he will do if he happens to get fired. His sister then thinks that men act so childish, even a vice leader, but she notices that the swordsman isn't fazed by the provocation and wonders if it's all an act. The girl then asks where he is going and realizes he is walking away from everyone. The vice leader mocks him once more and says he's leaving because he got offended. The young woman is confused by his attitude, but he replies that he's just following orders. The young man then explains that he can't be fired, and therefore he will follow his superior's orders. With an affectionate look, the young woman is once again impressed by the mysterious man's attitude. With that, the swordsman follows the man who called him for the mission without looking back. Inside a room, the director says that Zhang Chill will teach him and asks him not to cause trouble. With a serious look, he thinks that he needs to separate the two before he gets any closer to the girl. The man then wonders what he means by helping a grown adult like the young man. The director replies that he will understand when he meets him in person and sees how he acts. The man then comments that the young man said he lived alone in the mountains, which is why he's strange. With a suspicious look, he thinks about the strange combination of a porter with a sword. With a smile, the man asks if our hero happens to train in any sword techniques. The protagonist then replies with a serious look that he trains in the Three Powers sword technique. At this, the man scoffs and says he's just a beginner who dreams of becoming an escort warrior. With his sword in hand, he shows his combat stance with a look of pure arrogance. The swordsman then observes the scene with a disdainful look and doesn't seem impressed at all. The warrior then challenges him and asks him to show his skills with the sword technique. With a cold gaze, the protagonist asks if he means that he wants to be eliminated. The man is shocked by the response and says he just wants to measure their skills in a duel. Our hero then asks if he really wants to measure the skills between the two of them there. With a confident look, he then replies that he is definitely the stronger of the two. The warrior is shocked and can't believe the rookie's audacity and confidence. He then yells that someone who just picked up a sword can't compare to him. The swordsman says his confidence is good and that he will show him how to become stronger. He then makes a gesture with his hand, beckoning the warrior to fight with a challenging look. With that, the young man wonders if he needs to adjust his strength a bit so as not to overdo it. The man is confused and doesn't understand what he's doing with his hands at that moment. The protagonist then explains that this is the first time he won't be eliminating someone, so he needs to calculate. With his arms open, he prepares for combat with a serious and highly focused look. He then says he's got it and can now avoid eliminating his opponent during their fight. The man finally understands what the director meant and becomes fearful of what's to come. With a smirk, the warrior charges towards the protagonist with his sword in hand. He advances with a quick and precise attack, but our hero doesn't seem worried at all. With a calm gaze, the swordsman observes his opponent's attack and prepares for the counter attack. The man then leaps and delivers a powerful downward strike with all his strength. With a wicked smile, the protagonist decides that in order not to eliminate him, he must strike in front of his eyes. He then dodges the attack with a swift movement and prepares his own precise blow. A blue, electric aura begins to emanate from our hero's sword in an impressive display. Suddenly, a powerful beam of energy is fired from the blade toward the opponent. The warrior screams in pain, and his sword is sent flying away by the force of the surprise attack. He is then thrown backward and hits the ground with a great impact, kicking up dust. The man hits the ground hard and is left stunned after the rookie's devastating blow. Lying on the ground, he thinks that wasn't the three powers sword technique he knew. With blurry vision, he looks up and can't believe what just happened. The protagonist then approaches and asks, with a mocking tone, if it hurt a lot. The man then asks what kind of martial art that was, as he had never seen it before. The young man replies that it was literally the three powers sword technique he mentioned. With a serious look, he reveals that the technique resembles the three powers, but at the same time, it doesn't. The warrior then wonders how he can be such a supreme master, and if the director knew about it. With a confident smile, the swordsman says that either way, he is the stronger of the two. The man then sighs and thinks that despite all his skill, his innocence is that of a child. The man then decides that he first needs to teach him about society to make use of his arts. With his hand outstretched, he says it's now clear he doesn't need to teach him martial arts. With a slight smile, our hero observes the scene without a word, waiting for the next move. The warrior then explains that in moments like this, it's proper to take the hand and help the person up. The protagonist then looks at the outstretched hand and seems to understand what he meant. With that, the swordsman takes the man's hand and helps him up from the ground with a gentle gesture. And so, our hero went to live at the warrior's house to learn more about the normal world. The man is shocked to see him sleeping standing up and asks if he really sleeps that way. The warrior then begins to teach him everything he missed about the world over the years. But the protagonist shouts and says he shouldn't be changing clothes outside so carelessly. The man's face turns red with embarrassment, and he doesn't know how to react to his friend's comment. As a result, the swordsman gradually opened his heart to the porters and his new friend. The warrior then yells at him not to take off his pants. They're in the middle of the courtyard for any reason. Hidden, a woman observes the scene with a serious and thoughtful look about the current situation. In a flashback, the Alliance leader gives her the mission to monitor the Zhou family's every move. He explains that they need proof if the family is connected to the attack on the mountain. With a determined look, the woman agrees to carry out the Alliance leader's will. She then thinks that there are no suspicious people, and the only thing that stands out is that guy. From a distance, the young seal, Yain, watches the protagonist train with an admiring and gentle look. The spy then concludes that the young lady of the Zhou family has rather unique tastes. The young woman watches the young man with a gentle gaze and calls him brother once more with affection. In her new uniform, she comments that he has become a proper member of the escort agency. The scene then takes us to the day of the mission, and a new dawn breaks over the big city. Two horses neigh and prepare for the long journey that awaits them. The agency director wishes the escort leader good luck and asks him to return safely. The leader, named Mayuk, replies that he will complete the mission in the name of the escort agency. With a shout, he tells everyone to be on alert as the escort mission is about to depart. The carts and horses set off at high speed through the city streets, beginning the mission. Our hero and the other porters watch the group's departure with serious and attentive looks. Amid the crowd, the young seal, Yain, and her friend also watch the escort group depart. The warrior who trained him is also there, watching everything with an attentive and somewhat distant look. The scene then flashes back a few days to the Zhou family head's office with the newcomers. The Alliance leader is present in the room and seems to be having an important conversation with them. With a gesture, he invites them to sit down and begin the conversation about their mission. The family head asks if he is the Blade Dragon, one of the unit's twin dragons. The Alliance leader then asks if the other young man is the Sword Dragon, completing the pair. With a smile, The young man introduces himself as Namgung Jin and thanks the chief for the compliment. The young woman then introduces herself as the Blade Dragon's younger sister, and her name is Peng Mai Ryong. The family head then comments that the Peng family is the greatest martial family in Hebei. With a mischievous look, he thinks that she is lovely and could form a good connection with his son. The chief then says he hopes the young people get along well and share their martial wisdom. The siblings thank the chief for his hospitality and say they are the ones who should be grateful for the welcome. The young man's sister then gives a discreet smile as she attentively watches the conversation between the two. But their real mission was to investigate the Zhou family and their connection to the attack on the mountain. The young woman then mocks her brother because, despite the mission, he seems quite distracted by other things. She comments that he only pays attention to the young lady of the Zhou family, who is training in the courtyard. The young Seol Yaon trains with a serious and determined look, showing her skill with the sword. The spy then notices that the lady isn't looking at her brother, but at a simple porter. Her brother responds with disdain, saying there's nothing to worry about with some random guy. He heard that the young man left on a months-long mission, which will give him time to win her over. Meanwhile, at the escort agency, the porters prepare for their last meal together. They are about to eat their final meal before departing on the long escort mission. Our hero is completely focused on the food right in front of him, ready to eat. With his chopsticks, he brings the piece of meat to his mouth, preparing to savor the meal. The taste of the food leaves him with an expression of pure happiness and satisfaction on his face. For him, cooked food was the most exciting moment since he came out to the outside world. His friend then comments that he eats as if he's performing some kind of sacred ritual. He then says that the mission's destination is Sichuan, the home of one of the greatest families in the martial world. The friend reveals that the client for the escort mission is the powerful Tang family of Sichuan. The man leading the group is Tang Ho Guan, an elder of the famous Tang family of Sichuan. Another man named Tang Chiel, also a member of the Tang family, is introduced. The friend then continues to explain more details of the mission to the attentive swordsman. He says that the Tang family sent their own warriors for the escort mission. With this, the friend wonders just how precious the items they are transporting must be. But the protagonist remains focused on his food, not caring about the mission's details. Suddenly, a butterfly lands on the elder's hat, and he comments on a pleasant fragrance. With a gesture, he says the insect is annoying and prepares to do something about it. With a snap of his fingers, a powerful energy destroys the butterfly in mid-air in an instant. He then looks around suspiciously, as if he noticed something strange. The other Tang family member asks the elder if something happened. The elder replies that he sensed an unusual aura coming from one of the agency's porters. With an intense gaze, he wonders who the owner of that powerful and mysterious energy could be. His eyes then begin to scan among the porters to find the owner of that aura. The elder's gaze then focuses on our hero, who is eating peacefully at his table. The scene then takes us to the departure, and the horses are ready for the long journey. The escort leader, named Mai Yuk, announces that all preparations are complete for departure. The elder then wonders if the aura he felt was actually from the escort leader. He then concludes that the leader's aura was strong and tells everyone to get ready to leave. With a shout, the escort leader tells all the warriors and porters to finish their meals. He then announces that they need to reach Sichuan in a month and a half because speed is their trademark. The other porters are shocked by the deadline, but one of them seems to accept the challenge. At this, the friend warns him not to fall behind, or the escort leader will kick him out immediately. The leader then yells for everyone to prepare to leave, and the long journey finally begins. The swordsman then wonders why he would say something like, "Don't fall behind." The carts set off at high speed, and the leader's missions were difficult due to his nature. Additionally, all the porters had to run at the speed of the horses to keep up. The friend then yells for him to hang in there, but the young man still doesn't understand what falling behind means. But the protagonist kept up with the mission's pace, as if he were taking a simple stroll. The journey continues relentlessly, and the group runs stop until the sun sets on the horizon. At night, the friend explains that the young man sleeps that way as he rests peacefully on his feet. And so, our hero and the escort group continued their journey at a frantic pace. They reached Pyeongjeong Mountain in the Nahol district in just 2 days of travel. Suddenly, a spear flies at high speed toward the group as they run through the forest. One of the Tang family members then yells for everyone to stop, having sensed the imminent danger. The spear glows with a powerful blue aura as it approaches to hit its target. The escort leader wastes no time and prepares to intercept the attack with his weapon. With a swift movement, he manages to deflect the spear and prevent it from hitting the cart. He then yells and asks who the people are that dared to attack the escort group. A mysterious voice then replies that they should be the ones asking the leader that question. With that, a group of suspicious-looking men emerges from the forest to surround the group. The bandit leader then says they have entered the territory of the Green Forest and must pay a toll. The elder from the Tang family tells his subordinate to calm down, as they are just common bandits. The hero's friend says not to worry, but he wonders if they are the same bandits from before. With that, the escort leader throws a pile of coins and says that's their toll. The bald bandit then catches the coins in mid-air with a mocking smile on his face. But with a quick motion, he crushes the coins and throws them to the ground with contempt. He then yells that he doesn't want that paltry sum and tells them to hand over all the goods. Without wasting time, the bald man leaps toward the escort leader for a surprise attack. The protagonist's friend is shocked by the sudden attack and doesn't know what to do. But our hero immediately senses that the man has a strong life-ending intent. The bandit then charges with his weapon to attack the leader, who is still on his horse. He prepares for a fatal blow, and the escort leader tries to defend himself from the attack. But the blow is too strong, and the leader ends up getting hit squarely by the enemy's attack. With that, the escort leader is thrown from his horse and falls to the ground with a great impact. The bandit then laughs and asks if they think the escort agency can stop them there. With a shout, all the other bandits charge forward to attack the rest of the escort group. One of the porters becomes desperate and wonders how they will deal with so many enemies. The elder then realizes they are not common bandits and asks who is behind all of this. The bandit leader laughs and says they are heroes proudly affiliated with the Green Forest. He then charges at the elder and tells him to consider it an honor to be taken down by his hands. The elder says it's a pity, because if they were common bandits, he would have spared their lives. With that, he throws a needle that hits a tree with a powerful purple energy. The small weapon becomes embedded in the wood, showing the strength of Master Tang's attack. The bandit is shocked and can't believe what just happened there in the forest. He wonders how simple golden needles could cause such massive damage. Then, the man's body begins to dissolve into a sinister black smoke in the air. The other bandits are terrified by the scene and don't know how to react to the old man's power. Master Tang then says they dared to touch his family's goods and prepares to attack. With a furious look, he unleashes a shower of needles with a very powerful purple aura. The attack is launched with precision, and the bandits have nowhere to run from that technique. One of the men is hit by the needles and screams in pain from the impact of the direct hit. Another enemy is also pierced and cannot withstand the power of that deadly technique. Suddenly, a new group of masked enemies appears and says the Green Forest wasn't enough. This group is the Death Spirits Squad, and they cannot retreat with the elder there. Their leader then says it's an order from the family head to leave no one alive. The elder warns his subordinate to get ready, as these guys are the real enemies. He then says that even if the escort agency falls, they must deliver the goods. The subordinate warns his elite to protect the goods until the end, no matter what happens. With a shout, he orders his men to leave not a single enemy alive, and the battle begins. The Tang family's elite attack with full force, and the battle becomes a true massacre in the forest. The escort leader fights with all his strength, but the enemy is much more powerful than him. In the midst of the chaos, our hero just observes the battle around him with a calm and distant look. Someone yells for everyone to hold the formation, but the swordsman remains still without moving. One of the escort warriors is then caught by surprise and receives a fatal blow from the masked enemy. The leader realizes they are no match for these masters, and that the Tang family won't help them. At that, the protagonist's friend is hit by a blow and is shocked by the surprise attack. Seeing this, the swordsman's expression finally changes, and he seems to have reacted to the attack. One of the enemies then prepares to deliver the final blow to the young man, who is wounded and defenseless. The protagonist then remembers when his friend offered him some of his food during the meal. With that, a blue aura emanates from his sword, and he finally decides to enter the battle to fight. With this, he unleashes a devastating electric attack to protect his friend from enemies. The opponent who attacked him is completely disintegrated by the powerful energy discharge. Seeing the scene, the companion is shocked because he did not expect such a great display of power. The other enemies wonder what that explosion was, and if lightning had just struck there. Then the friend recognizes the technique and says that was Haiyang, Wu's heavenly thunder. With that, he desperately asks the boy to save his other companions as well. But the protagonist coldly replies that he saved him only because it was him and no one else. The friend then pleads and asks why, since everyone there is his teammate. Meanwhile, the other porters continue to be eliminated by the masked enemies. One of them even begs for his life, saying that they are just chargers with no internal power. The swordsman then says that he doesn't understand what the word companion truly means, but since it was his friend's request, he decides that he will save everyone else for him. With a determined look, he advances at high speed across the battlefield. He moves so fast that the enemies don't even notice and are caught off guard one by one. The hero grabs another enemy by the neck without giving him the slightest chance to react to the attack. In the blink of an eye, he passes through several enemies, defeating them with extreme ease. An enemy mocks the old man, but is surprised by our hero's quick movement. Master Tang is startled and wonders what just passed him by so quickly. Only the old man can vaguely perceive the boy's movement amidst the confusion. With a calm look, the protagonist stops and asks if what he has done is enough. With his electrical power, he finishes off all remaining enemies in a single instant. The protagonist then turns around with a calm look, as if nothing had happened there. With the battle over, the forest falls silent once more under a clear blue sky. Elsewhere, a woman wonders if her elite squad was truly annihilated. This is Umanhai, the leader of the Death Spirit troop, and she doesn't believe what she hears. The subordinate apologizes and says that there was a supervisor who was not in their reports. At that moment, the man is shocked because the head of the family decided to go in person. With a smile, she confirms that she will find out for herself who this master is. The scene takes us to the headquarters of the Human clan, one of the most influential families in the world. Inside, the clan leader asks if they've discovered what the Tang family is hiding. The chief is Umun Wong, and he hears that the Tang family has rediscovered the thunder grenades. The subordinate explains that the blacksmith's mansion helped them, and that they are from the Thunder sect. With this, the old man understands that the sect's heirs have brought the weapon back into the world. He then thinks of the immense power that 5 cartloads of these grenades would have. With that power, it would be possible to destroy entire regions and change the balance of the world. With a malevolent look, he says that they need to take these weapons for themselves at all costs. The subordinate then reveals that the young lady has already left with the squad after hearing the news. The boss gets furious and yells, asking where young Haya went without his permission. Fearfully, the man replies that by now, she must be near Pyongyang Mountain, and so the villainess rides at high speed towards the battle site to see everything. Thanks to the protagonist's efforts, the agency eliminated all enemies, but they lost almost all of their escort warriors in the battle. Only the severely wounded escort leader and the warrior who trained him survived. In addition to them, there were also some porters who were completely terrified. One of the men suggests hiring another agency, but the elder says they should trust them. The boy questions the decision and says that with the elder's celestial thunder, they could go alone. He then congratulates the old man for having perfected the secret technique of the Tang family, but the master reveals that he barely saw what happened, and that he wasn't the one who used the technique. Shocked by this, the young man asks who is responsible for the powerful attack. The old man then says that if his old eyes didn't deceive him, he knows very well who it was. With that, he points directly at the protagonist and calls him a sword carrier. Then the master approaches the boy and asks him directly which sect he belongs to. The swordsman doesn't understand the question, and the old man explains that he wants to know where he trained. Then the boy remembers Cheongija and says that he never taught him any martial arts. With a cold look, he reveals that his martial arts are his alone and no one else's. He explains that he gained his skills after countless life or death battles. Therefore, he states with complete certainty that he does not belong to any sect or clan. The elder is shocked and asks if he's saying his abilities fell from the sky. The hero's friend panics because he is being rude to an elder of the Tang family. He then tries to calm the situation and says that his friend lived alone in the mountains for a long time. The old man thinks he is arrogant, but concludes that they need his strength for the mission. The old man realizes that the porter listens well to his friend and devises a plan to keep him in line. Then he turns to the warrior and praises him, saying that he is more skilled than he seemed. With this, the elder appoints him the new leader of the escort, replacing the former leader who was injured. The boy is shocked by the sudden decision and can't believe the new responsibility. The former leader agrees and says he will rush back to the agency to get reinforcements. He then passes command to the warrior and asks him to lead the group to the end of the mission. The boy understands that someone needs to take responsibility and accepts the difficult task. With a formal gesture, he promises that he will lead the escort to Sichuan in complete safety. Master Tang agrees and says that since it is late, they will leave the following morning. The other member of the Tang family is outraged and wonders if any of this makes any sense. Meanwhile, our hero simply observes the scene with his typical calm and distant gaze. And so the escort agency's journey continued, now under the leadership of the new commander. At the same time, the former leader rode as fast as possible to report the surprise attack. He thinks that even with the porter's strength, everyone will be in danger if the enemy returns. Suddenly, the man notices something strange and stops his horse in the middle of the dark forest. He senses another presence heading in the same direction and concludes that he needs to hurry even faster. At that moment, a strange glint reflects in his eyes, revealing a weapon with chains. Suddenly, a weapon strikes him squarely and throws him far from his horse with a fatal blow. The weapon with chains cuts through the air violently, demonstrating the brutality of that surprise attack. And so the former escort leader meets a tragic end on his journey back to the agency. Through the forest, a group of masked assassins advances at high speed during the night. This is the assassination unit of the Blood Demon Sun, a deadly elite troop. The group leader then confirms that the target has been eliminated and prepares for the next mission. With a malevolent look, he reveals that their next target will be the powerful Zhou family. Meanwhile, at the mansion, the head of the family and his advisor work late into the night. The boss then says that they cannot stop because work and training should never be postponed. He continues his work with a focused gaze, unaware of the approaching danger. Suddenly, a drop of ink falls from his brush like a bad omen of what is to come. The boss senses an evil presence and wonders what that aura is that appeared out of nowhere. The ink spills across the table and chaos begins to unfold outside the mansion. Several guards are caught off guard, and the family's courtyard fills with shouting and confusion. One of the guards then shouts for everyone to grab their weapons and prepare for the ambush. The head of the family simply says that it was as he expected, as if he knew this was going to happen. With a shout, the leader of the assassins orders his men to leave not a single survivor. The captain of the guard rushes into battle and asks who the madmen are who attacked them. But his advisor stops him and asks him to calm down and not enter the battle now. The boss is confused by his friend's behavior and asks what he thinks he's doing. The advisor explains that the murderous intent of the enemies is too strong for them. The scene shows the assassins massacring the family's guards with extreme ease. With a serious look, the man says that the boss needs to go somewhere else and get out of there now. The boss then runs towards his daughter's room to warn her of the imminent danger. He urgently opens the door and finds the young woman, who is surprised by the sudden intrusion. The father then yells for her to leave the place immediately and prepare to flee the mansion. Frightened, the girl asks what is happening and worries about her father's fate. Under the moonlight, the mansion is engulfed in flames, and cries for help echo everywhere. The murderers continue the massacre and show no mercy to the family's guards. The leader then orders his men to also attack the escort agency and leave nothing behind. Meanwhile, the young woman and her companions ride at high speed to escape the scene. The girl, her brother, and the agency director flee the mansion as fast as they can. The fire spreads rapidly and also reaches the headquarters of the city's escort agency. The girl looks back and realizes that the flames are not only in the house, but also in the agency. The director then yells for her not to stop running because they need to get out of there now. But she worries about her father, and the man reminds her how strong the head of the family is. The chief then takes his spear and prepares to fight, for he is the greatest spearman of Hanum. With a powerful movement, he spins his weapon and prepares to face the horde of enemies. Its attack unleashes a wave of energy that destroys everything around it with impressive force. The advisor then proudly states that no one in the region can equal his master. The leader of the assassins then recognizes the man and confirms that he is the head of the Zhou family. With his spear in hand, the warrior prepares for the most difficult battle of his life. The villain then orders his men to bring the chief's head, and they all advance to attack. The advisor shouts that the head of the family is sacrificing himself so they can escape from there. At this point, the girl's brother tells her to trust her father, but the young woman seems very worried about him. Her brother then asks what the two from the alliance are trying to say with all this. The spy then warns that they will not stay and need to return to the Murim alliance immediately. She explains that it is necessary to report the attack as quickly as possible so that everyone is aware of it. The girl's brother agrees, but worries that enemies might start chasing them soon. With that, the director says that if they can't count on them, he can only think of one person. He remembers the porter who confronted the bandits of the Green Forest and saved everyone before. With a determined look, the older man decides that they need to find another way to escape. The young woman then says goodbye and asks the two of them to be very careful on their way. Next, the director warns that they need to hurry to catch up with the escort group from Sichuan. The girl then thinks that if she finds Haiyang Wu, he will surely know what to do to help them. With tears in her eyes, she looks at the burning mansion and prays that her father manages to survive. Meanwhile, at the mansion, the masked killers continue the massacre under the light of the full moon. Even wounded, the head of the family gets up and prepares to continue fighting against everyone. With a furious look, the man asks who they are and why they are attacking his family. The assassins let out an evil laugh as a shadowy figure emerges from behind them all. The mysterious figure then says that he won't bother answering because he's about to leave. The head of the family gets angry at the response and shouts for the leader to show himself right now. In response, a powerful red energy attack is launched towards the head of the family. The head of the family is shocked and wonders how the leader of the assassins is still alive. Then the villain reveals that he threw away his old name and strikes the boss with a fatal blow. Looking at the destroyed mansion, he remarks that the Zhou family is now nothing but ashes. The wrongdoer asks about his killers, and the subordinate says they went to hunt the survivors. Even so, the man says he still can't understand the reason for that surprise attack. He then wonders why the blood demon child would destroy the Zhou family of all people. The villain then asks Yahello if he knows about his relationship with Master Qianggija. The subordinate replies that he knows they risked their lives as great rivals in the past. With that, the villain confirms the story and says that he is the only one left from that rivalry. He then reveals that the first place Qianggija planned to train his masters was there. Therefore, naturally, that was the place where he should begin his great revenge. With a wicked grin, he vows that he won't let a single member of the Zhou family escape alive. The scene then takes us to the dark forest, where the fugitives ride desperately. The director realizes the enemies are close and tells them to hold on just a little longer. The girl's brother looks exhausted and is breathing heavily, trying to keep up with the pace of the escape. With that, the boy begins to fall behind, and the red ore of the enemies draws closer to them. The director shouts desperately for the young man not to fall so far behind, and to try to hurry up. With a sweaty face, the girl's brother continues to ride, but the distance between them only increases. A chain flies through the air, and the boy realizes that he will be the reason everyone is captured. The weapon then hits him squarely, and the young man screams in pain from the impact of the surprise blow. Seeing the scene, the agency director shouts the boy's name in utter despair. With that, the young man is thrown from his horse with a violent and precise blow. His sister then screams in despair and cannot believe what has just happened. Without wasting any time, the masked killers advance on the other survivors. One of the enemies jumps towards the young woman and says that he finally caught her in the middle of her escape. The girl then screams in fright, and the horse is startled by the enemy's sudden attack. As a result, she ends up falling to the ground and becomes completely vulnerable to attack by the assassins. The enemies then surround the two survivors, who are lying on the forest floor. Lying on the floor, the director calls out the young woman's name with a look of pure concern. With tears in his eyes, he thinks that she was the only child he wanted to protect. The girl then realizes that if they followed them this far, her father and brother were defeated. The leader of the assassins then praises her for having managed to evade them for so long. With his sword gleaming, he warns that her escape ends right there and then. The young woman then cries desperately and begs someone to save her from that situation. Suddenly, a blue, electric energy begins to emanate throughout the dark forest. The girl looks up with a hopeful expression as she sees that familiar and powerful light. Amidst the energy, a silhouette emerges and prepares to enter the battle to save her. Then our hero appears with a serious look and points his hand in her direction to help. With a focused look, he says he heard her voice calling for help in the middle of the night. The young woman then cries with relief upon seeing that her savior has finally arrived to help her. The scene then returns to the escort group as they continue their journey through the dark forest. Suddenly, our hero stops walking and seems to have sensed something strange in the air. In his mind, he hears the girl's voice, desperately calling for help from afar. With that, his friend notices the change and asks what happened to make him stop like that. The swordsman then replies with a serious look that he will return in a moment. The friend gets confused and asks where he's going in the middle of that mission, but the boy disappears in the blink of an eye, and his friend screams his name in fright. Running at high speed, the protagonist thinks he definitely heard her voice. He then remembers her voice calling him and asking for his help that night. Back on the scene, the assassin prepares to deliver the final blow to the last heiress of the Joe family. But suddenly our hero emerges in the middle of an explosion of electrical energy. The enemies are shocked by the appearance and wonder who that mysterious guy is. The director then asks the boy to take care of the young woman because he trusts in his power. The protagonist then looks at the older man with a calm and serious expression. With a final sigh, the elder says that enough is enough and finally rests. The leader of the assassins shouts that it doesn't matter who he is because he will just be another body. The swordsman then places his hand on the girl's head in a gesture of pure affection. With his touch, the young woman feels all her fear and weariness vanish like snow. With a gentle look, the boy asks her to wipe away the tears that are streaming down her face. Then he turns to his enemies and says he's going to finish all this very quickly. With that, the boy leaps into the air and charges into the middle of the battle with impressive speed. He moves like lightning and defeats multiple enemies at once with his electric attacks. The assassins scream in pain and don't understand what kind of martial art he was using. With his sword, he then unleashes a rain of lightning that strikes all remaining enemies. The young woman is shocked to see that nearly 20 murderers have turned to ashes in a single instant. She then thinks that if she had his strength, perhaps she could have protected her entire family. With a serious look, the protagonist prepares to do what needs to be done at that moment. The boy then says he'll be right back and places his hand on a large rock that was on the ground. With a sad look, he promises that he will let the director rest in a much better place. The girl then approaches him and asks what she should do now that she is alone in the world. Without her father or brother, she doesn't know what to do and feels completely lost and directionless. The word, alone, hits him hard because he also knows very well what it's like to feel that way. He then remembers that he too survived that hell alone and went out into the world without anyone. The young woman was the first person to reach out to him, and so he will do the same for her. With a serious and protective look, he approaches the girl and tells her to simply live. The swordsman then tells her to live doing whatever she wants with gratitude for those who have passed. With tears in her eyes, the girl wonders what she really wants to do with her life. With a determined look, she reveals that she also wants to join that escort mission. The protagonist is a little surprised by the request, but holds her hand quite firmly. With a slight smile, he announces that they are leaving now and asks her to hold on tight to him. The young woman is confused by his attitude and doesn't understand what he meant by that. With that, the protagonist picks her up and leaps into the sky with impressive speed. The girl is shocked by what is happening and can't believe it all. She then thinks that it's more than just a feat of lightness, and it seems like they are flying. With the speed of flight, all her tears are carried away by the wind without leaving a trace. The boy's attitude comforted her more than any words he could have said at that moment. With an admiring look, she thinks that a skill like that belongs to an incredible person. The young woman remembers that her uncle was a master, but the boy turned the murderers to ashes. With that, she asks how he manages to be so strong, since they are not so far apart in age. The swordsman then calmly replies that this happens when one fights for a life for a long time. The girl asks who he fought against, and the boy reveals that they were terrifying demons. She then asks if they were like monsters, and he confirms that one could say so. The young woman becomes curious and asks him to tell her more about this story from his past. The protagonist remains silent for a moment, seemingly remembering something quite painful. To talk about that hell, he would need to go through the 99 of his friends who are gone. The memories of his dead comrades come rushing back to his mind at that moment. Also that he could finally reach Cheonjija, who left before his revenge was complete. With a distant look, he then says that he will tell her this story on another occasion. And so the two ran without stopping for a long time to catch up with the escort group. They advanced through the forest at impressive speed to reach their destination. The young woman finally arrives at the escort group's camp and calls for one of the men. The hero's friend is shocked to see her and asks what brings her there in the middle of the mission. In a flashback, the warrior reveals that he doesn't believe Master Cheonjija has truly departed. The girl and the protagonist listen to the unexpected news with great attention and surprise in their eyes. With this, the swordsman concludes that his main target for revenge is actually still alive, and so the two ran without stopping until they finally reached the escort group in the forest. Upon arriving, the girl calls out to the protagonist's friend, who is surprised by her presence. The warrior then asks worriedly what happened, and she reveals the terrible news of the attack. He is shocked to learn that the Zhou family and the escort agency have been completely destroyed. The other porters panic and wonder what will happen to their future. The young woman apologizes for bringing such bad news in the middle of an important escort mission, but the hero's friend tells her not to worry because she's the one suffering the most from all of this. He then thinks that the group's morale was already low, and now the situation has gotten much worse. The warrior realizes he needs a clever way to get out of that situation. With this, he reminds everyone of the Great Commission they will receive if they complete the mission. He says they might even rebuild the agency, since they still have the young lady with them. The girl is deeply moved by the warrior's words of support as he tries to encourage her. She realizes that now is not the time to suffer, because she has a responsibility to all her servants. The young woman vows to become as strong as the protagonist in order to avenge her entire family in the future. With a serious look, the swordsman asks if they need to set off on their journey again. The warrior then agrees and the group resumes its important escort mission. At that moment, the Tang family master notices the young woman and tells his subordinate not to worry about her. The elder thinks that if the protagonist joins them, he wouldn't mind even if a tiger came along, and so the porters start running again at high speed to keep up with the pace of the carts. The young woman then remembers that the boy said he had fought monsters for a long time. She had never heard of such a place and wondered what really happened to it. With that, the girl approaches and asks him to tell her more about what he was saying on the way. She then asks if Master Cheongija is really dead, and the boy stares at her with a serious look. The protagonist confirms the story, saying that he left about 10 years ago. With a sad look, he thinks that he will then not be able to achieve his long-awaited revenge. But the hero's friend says with a serious look that he doesn't believe Cheongija is really gone. The young woman is surprised by the revelation and looks at the swordsman to see his reaction. The protagonist then asks if he thinks his greatest enemy is still alive out there. The warrior explains that there are many suspicious parties and that the rumor has no reliable source. It's as if someone spread the news so that everyone in the martial arts world would believe it. The girl asks who would do that, and the hero's friend says that the most likely suspect is a person, someone who, for some reason, wanted to escape the attention of the entire martial arts world and disappear, and that person would be Cheongija himself, who would have spread the rumor of his own departure. The young woman is shocked and can't believe he would spread the news of his own death. With that, the swordsman realizes that all of that happened exactly 10 years ago. Suddenly, the Tang family elder orders everyone to stop marching immediately. The escort group encounters a stopped convoy, and a man apologizes for the inconvenience. He then explains that the wheel of their carriage suddenly broke along the way. With that, the man asks his lady to join the escort group to continue the journey. Master Tang recognizes the coat of arms on the carriage and realizes they are from the famous Yumun clan. The old man becomes suspicious because right when the cargo leaks, one of their carriages breaks down there. From inside the carriage, a female voice apologizes and says she cannot accept a no for an answer. Then a beautiful woman appears and introduces herself as Uman Hai, daughter of the head of the Yumun clan. Young Xia Lian and the others are shocked by the newcomer's unparalleled beauty, but that the protagonist is unimpressed and thinks it's all just a big misunderstanding. Wearing elegant shoes, the young woman prepares to step down from the carriage and join the group. She then leaps into the air with impressive grace and lightness, surprising everyone. The woman floats in the air like a fairy and leaves all the men speechless with the scene. Her beauty was so great that everyone immediately thought of the phrase, "beauty that brings down kingdoms." Even the elder of the Tang family is momentarily captivated by the young woman's beauty. Like a butterfly, she lands gently on her destination with a delicate and perfect movement. The newcomer then climbs onto one of the carts, carrying the mission's goods. With a seductive smile, she sits atop the load as if she owns the place. One of the porters says it's not appropriate for someone to travel with the escort's goods. The swordsman then continues to silently observe the situation with a serious and distant look. With a red face, Master Tang says he will take her to the next town since the carriage broke down. The hero's friend is shocked because even the powerful elder seems to have fallen under her spell. The newcomer then thanks them with a seductive smile and says that she is now in their care. With that, the new leader of the escort and the other men are completely charmed by the girl. The old man suggests that she travel in the front cart, but the young woman refuses the offer of kindness. She says that since she is receiving assistance, she cannot afford to choose where she will stay. With that, the girl insists that she will travel in that cargo cart along with the goods. The old man then thinks that if that porter is guarding the cargo, everything should be fine. Then he orders the escort group to move forward and continue their long journey. The mysterious woman then gives a discreet smile as if her plan is working. She uses a sound transmission technique to communicate secretly with her men. One of them reports that the group has only one escort warrior and about 30 porters. With this, the villain concludes that Master Tang Ho Guan is the only true master among them. Meanwhile, the The porters continue running to keep up with the pace of the carts. The woman thinks that with such weak protection, they are transporting 5 cartloads of grenades. These thunder grenades were once created by the powerful and feared Thunder sect. They said that these bombs were capable of wiping several sects off the map without leaving a trace. But ironically, the destruction of the sect itself also came from those same powerful bombs. After that, the Thunder sect disappeared for hundreds of years, and no one ever heard from it again. The villain thinks they could have used the grenades against her men, but there was no trace of them. The villain then wonders who on earth was capable of annihilating her elite death squad. Suddenly her gaze focuses on something, and she seems to have noticed a very unusual presence. She notices that his clothes are those of a porter, but he carries a sword and has no martial arts skills. He doesn't seem to have anything special about him, but for some reason the woman can't stop noticing him. With a shocked look, she then realizes that the charger hasn't even looked at her since he arrived. The villain doesn't understand how he can see her beauty and act with such indifference. She finds it impossible for a man not to be interested in her, so she decides to get his attention. The protagonist only turned around because he was the only porter nearby, and she called him, but the moment she sees his eyes, the woman is completely shocked by the scene. That indifferent look was a humiliation she had never felt before, and it infuriated her. With a wicked smile, she vows that one way or another she will make him kneel at her feet. With that, the leader announces that they will rest there for the night, and everyone agrees. The porters are exhausted and breathing heavily after the long day's journey. Meanwhile, our hero moves away a little and finds himself alone in the middle of the dark forest. Young Lian then approaches him with a bowl of beef soup in her hands. She finds him and invites him to dinner, saying that she prepared that soup especially for him. But suddenly the villainess appears from behind and interrupts the moment between the two with a dark look. She then steps forward and grabs the swordsman's arm with impressive agility and speed. With a seductive smile, she invites him to follow her into the forest because she wants something very much from him. The woman then says that she will only tell him what she wants if he is good enough to accompany her. The villainess says she'll see if she can lure him in with the martial arts of her powerful clan. With a wicked smile, she hopes her lightness of skill won't crush his confidence. She then runs at high speed through the dark forest, thinking he would be a disappointment. But in the blink of an eye, our hero appears right in front of her with a serious look. With a serious face, the swordsman stares at her closely without showing any emotion. The woman is shocked and can't believe he's already right there in front of her. Suddenly a scream echoes through the forest and draws the attention of everyone who was there. The villain's servant recognizes the voice and says he needs to go with his men to see what happened. Young Lian is confused by the situation and wonders what is happening to him. The protagonist then continues to stare at the villain with his typical cold and distant gaze. The woman is shocked because even within her clan, her ability to move with lightness was impressive. With a furious look, she asks who he really is to be able to surpass her so easily. The swordsman then says he wants Cheongiji's location and asks her to tell him immediately. The villainess stammers and says she doesn't know where he is or what he means by meat soup. The boy then says that if she doesn't know anything, he's leaving and turns to go away. She then shouts and tells him to wait because she still has more things to ask him. Suddenly her men appear and ask what he did with the young lady from the Umun clan. With their weapons in hand, they threaten him and say that he will pay for his audacity with his life. But the villainess yells at them not to draw their swords and to retreat immediately from that fight. With a cold, sharp gaze, our hero simply observes the scene in complete silence. The villainess's men are completely confused because the swordsman disappeared right in front of them without leaving a trace. One of the servants then asks where he went since he was right there in front of everyone. The villain says that he disappeared and that it wasn't a trick because he simply vanished into thin air. With this, we see the boy moving at high speed through the forest like a true blur. Suddenly, young Lian is startled and can't believe what just happened there. With wide eyes, she realizes that something very strange has happened right beside her. At that moment, The girl looks at her hands and realizes that the bowl of soup she was holding has simply vanished. Then the protagonist appears out of nowhere and calmly drinks the soup that the girl had earlier. The girl is startled, and he says the soup hasn't cooled down, and she asks when he got there. She then asks about the other lady, and he replies that she will come whenever she wants, no problem. The young woman then remarks that the lady from the human clan is truly very beautiful and impressive. The boy agrees that she is pretty enough to seduce any man, and the girl confirms this. This makes the girl curious, and she asks him what he thinks of her and if she's pretty too. The swordsman stares at her with a serious look and prepares to give his honest answer. With a flushed face, the young woman anxiously awaits his reply with a hopeful look, but he says she's not as pretty as the other one, and the girl is a little disappointed. With a cold look, the protagonist reveals that he actually doesn't like beautiful women. The young woman is confused by the answer and asks why he doesn't like women like that. The boy then explains that the temptation of a beautiful woman always ends in death. Meanwhile, the villain thinks that the porter is definitely the person she was looking for. The servant says that he must be the master who annihilated the death squad and that they need to observe him. With a smile, the villainess thinks that besides the name, she doesn't know what kind of man he really is. And so the journey continued, and the escort agency was almost at its final destination. Young Celian remembers his words and wonders what kind of life the young man had in the past. The new leader of the escort then calls her over for a chat, and she promptly responds to his call. With this, he warns her to be very careful, because the atmosphere gets stranger closer to their destination. The tension in the air increases with each step they take toward their ultimate goal. The danger was real, and the Tang family elder also sensed that evil aura in the air. The master believes the only remaining threat is the Hall of the Black Serpent before they arrive. Over the past 10 years, this sect has grown considerably and has become the only force that threatens the Tang family. With danger approaching, the group continues its journey at high speed through the forest. The old man is indignant and wonders if there has been an information leak within his family. The girl warns about the ambush, and the hero says there must be about 100 enemies nearby. The girl is shocked by his precision, and the villain is also surprised by the boy's skill. The woman thinks it's almost unbelievable that he knows the number of enemies just by their presence. Suddenly, several black dots appear in the sky, and the enemies finally emerge to attack. A horde of assassins leaps from the trees and prepares to attack the escort group by surprise. With a calm look, the protagonist says that about 50 of them appeared first in front. The master shouts that the cargo is what matters and orders the hero only to protect their goods. With this, the elder advances into the midst of the battle, releasing his aura to confront all enemies. The elder shouts that they are more than enough to defeat all the enemies of the sect. The hero's friend then asks him what he thinks of the situation and whether he agrees with the master. But the boy says not to worry, because the old man's side will surely win the battle. And so the fight begins, and the Tang family warriors easily massacre their enemies. The battle unfolds brutally, and the men of the Black Serpent Hall don't stand a chance. For the elite warriors of the Tang family, the large number of enemies meant nothing. Seeing that, the villain begins to feel a little uneasy about the outcome of that battle. She then wonders if they ended up underestimating the power of the famous Tang family too much. His servant is also shocked to see that they dealt with 50 men so easily. The man says that even with 50 more warriors, there would be no chance of victory for them. The woman then concludes that retreating for now is the best option they have at the moment, but she wonders how she can give the order to withdraw without anyone noticing her plan. Suddenly, the protagonist says that if she goes to warn them, he certainly won't stop her. The villain's servant is shocked and wonders what he just heard. With a serious look, the boy reveals that he was listening to their secret sound transmission. The swordsman then repeats that if she wants to go and warn them, he won't stop her under any circumstances. The man is completely speechless and cannot believe what has just happened. The villain is shocked and asks if he was listening to their secret conversation the whole time. The hero stares at her because hearing another person's sound transmission shouldn't be possible. With a menacing look, he warns that if they don't back down, he'll finish them all off right there. With a frightened look, the villainess realizes that his threat is no bluff. Then the woman sent her servant to deliver the order to retreat to the other warriors. The servant then agrees and runs at high speed to deliver his mistress's message. With a smile, she gives thanks because, thanks to him, her warriors were able to save their lives and leave. The hero stares at her with a calm look, but he had another reason for doing all that. It wasn't the presence of the human clan that bothered him, but rather a strong murderous intent he sensed. Meanwhile, Master Tang Ho Guan was in the midst of battle, striving to defeat the enemies. With his powerful blows, he easily defeated all the members of the Black Serpent Hall. From afar, a mysterious figure observes the scene and says that the vanguard has been completely annihilated. The masked man reveals that the vanguard was merely a decoy for the real surprise attack, and so the Red Moon Squadron waits in hiding for the right moment to attack the group. All the assassins are on full alert, awaiting the signal to begin the ambush. The leader then confirms with a malevolent look that everything is going according to his plan. With the protagonist looking the other way, the warriors of the human clan manage to retreat safely. The 50 men walk away, but the fall murderous intent grows even stronger. Night finally falls and the escort group decides they will sleep there to rest. The leader announces that the young woman from the human clan will be camping nearby and asks if she wants to stay with her. But the girl refuses the offer and says she can't be the only one sleeping comfortably there. With a serious look, the young woman prepares to reveal the truth behind her decision. She says she's ashamed because she never paid attention to the agency, as she thought her job was simple. But she says that while on the escort, she realized the real reason the agency was so peaceful. Peace existed because everyone risked their lives, and his friend asks since when he was so strong. Therefore, as a member of the agency, she decides that she will sleep with everyone else at the camp. With a determined look, she vows that she will become the head of the Hanem escort agency. Suddenly, the girl notices the protagonist's presence and calls him over to talk to her. With a curious look, the young woman then asks if he has anything to say to her. The boy then explains that in an escort agency, the starting point is being a porter. The young woman is embarrassed by the response, and her friend agrees that he is not wrong in what he says. With that, the girl asks him to teach her, and the warrior is shocked by her attitude. The friend then thinks with pride that the young woman has grown up a lot without him even noticing. The Red Moon Squad is an assassin unit created by the Hall of the Black Serpent. As their specialty suggests, they are masters of ambushes and stealthy surprise attacks. Their stealth is terrifying because it's not just about hiding in the shadows. The assassins move as if they were a single person with a single objective in mind. With this, they are able to take down any number of enemies in the blink of an eye. Meanwhile, back at camp, the campfire burns brightly to warm everyone that night. Suddenly, the camera zooms out, and we see that everyone in the camp is already asleep. Even the powerful elder of the Tang family seems to be in a very deep and heavy sleep. At this moment, the protagonist approaches the young woman and touches her forehead with a gentle gesture. With a serious look, the hero prepares to watch over the camp throughout the night. The night in the dark forest remained silent and full of hidden dangers. Suddenly, a bright red eye emerges from the shadows, observing the camp. The masked assassin prepares to give the signal and begin the surprise attack. With the signal, a red aura spreads, and the assassins advance towards the camp. But the protagonist was already expecting them and says he knew they were hiding there. Meanwhile, the rest of the group continued sleeping, unaware of the approaching danger. The leader of the assassins then orders everyone to attack. When he finishes counting to 3, he begins counting, but suddenly a hand grabs his face with astonishing force. Our hero appears out of nowhere and grabs it with his hand, which glows with a blue electric energy. With a single blow, the boy throws him to the ground and defeats him before he can react to the attack. Another enemy continues the count, but he doesn't even notice what happened to his companion. One by one, the assassins are silently defeated before they even begin to fight. The leader finishes the count and prepares for the attack, unaware that his men have already fallen. He orders that no survivors be left and that they focus on the most dangerous target first. With that, one of the assassins advances to attack the elder of the Tang family, who was sleeping. The villain says that in the end, it will be the Hall of the Black Serpent that will possess the thunder grenades. Suddenly, the attack is blocked by a sword in a flash of light in the middle of the night. To the enemy's surprise, one of the escort guards defends the old man from the fatal blow. The leader becomes furious and wonders why the watchman is still alive and what the troop did. The other guards wake up startled and wonder who is there because they didn't feel anything. The leader of the assassins is shocked and can't believe what's happening there. With a cold look, the protagonist asks if their name really is Red Moon Squad. The villain is startled and wonders how he managed to hear their secret sound transmission. Then the hero reveals that there is no more squad because only that enemy remains alive. The murderer screams in despair and asks what kind of monster he is to do all this. With a cold look, the boy tells him to go join his companions who have already left. Then he unleashes a powerful electric attack with an impressive blue energy. The villain doesn't believe their plan ended so easily after so much preparation. With that, the last member of the squad is completely disintegrated by the powerful energy. Master Tang wakes up startled, and his nephew warns him that the forest is full of enemies. The hero's friend explains that it seems the survivors attempted one last ambush. Young Celiam becomes worried and asks if all the porters are all right after the attack. The warrior then reassures her and says that it seems only the enemies did not survive. With this, he explains that fortunately their friend acted first and saved everyone there. The protagonist simply observes the scene with his typical calm and distant gaze. The girl thinks with an admiring look that the boy protected her once again that night. The villain thinks she thought he was merciful, but perhaps not as much as she imagined. With a smile, she concludes that he is truly a man who cannot be deciphered. And so, the escort group prepares to continue its long journey in the morning. Thanks to the hero's help, they escaped danger and ran safely to their destination. Finally, the escort group arrives at its final destination, the city of Chengdu in Sichuan. One of the porters celebrates and says that as soon as they pass through the streets, the mission will be over. The mysterious girl then looks at the young Celian with a suggestive look and begins to speak. With a smile, she asks the other girl what she meant by all that. Young Celian then reminds her that she said she needed to go somewhere before they arrived in the city. The woman then tells the girl not to worry because she will leave at the right time. With a mysterious look, she turns and tells young Celian to just watch what comes next. Then the hero's friend says that he will be busy when they arrive, but the boy doesn't understand anything. The warrior explains that the Ake family mansion exists and asks if his friend didn't have that name. He then says that he thought the hero would like to visit the family of his important friend from the past. With this, the protagonist remembers his friend's last words, asking him to live and to apologize. With a determined look, the swordsman says that they will go to the Ake family mansion right now. With that, the escort group finally reaches their destination, the Tang family home in Sichuan. As they enter, a man approaches the elder and says he's happy to see him return safely. The hero's friend and the young woman look out at the city, amazed to finally be in Sichuan. Then the master hands over a bag of money, thanking everyone for their work on the escort mission. The elder addresses the girl, saying he hopes to work with her again, now as the new leader. With her hands trembling, she thinks that this is her first reward as the agency's head. Her eyes soon fill with tears, as that payment held a very special meaning. She remembers losing her entire family and the Zhou mansion in a terrible attack. She wipes away a tear and agrees, promising to be strong for the people she has left. With a gentle smile, the girl thanks him and asks the warrior to look after her from now on. Meanwhile, the villain's group has also arrived, and one man regrets not having grabbed the grenades. Another subordinate says they must be careful, as the main house will find out about them. But the villain smiles and states that her clan never fails to get what it wants, one way or another. With a thoughtful look, she reveals that at this very moment, What she desires most is that man, referring to our protagonist, who deeply intrigues her. Arriving at the Tang family, the swordsman caught the attention of everyone he had saved more than once. All those whose lives he had saved watched him with great admiration, but the hero seemed focused on something else, not caring about the stares around him. The warrior mentions the Ak family mansion and asks if the young man's old friend had that name. With that, the master suggests they rest, but the escort leader refuses, as he has business with the hero. At that moment, the young swordsman leaps into the air with an agility that startles his companion. He lands on top of a high rooftop and observes the entire city of Sichuan with great attention. With a focused gaze, the young man shows he is completely concentrated on what he must do now. In that instant, he remembers his old colleague and tries to sense if there is any similar energy there. Closing his eyes, the protagonist tracks the flow of internal power emanating from that region. So, the group decides to stop at an inn to spend the night and get some rest. While the men talk about bathing, the young woman watches the two fighters preparing to leave. She asks where they are going, but the warrior replies that he will tell her everything when they return. But the hero keeps a very serious expression as he prepares for the new night journey. But he simply raises his hand. Just then, the swordsman places his hand on the girl's head in an unexpected gesture of protection. With that, the young woman wonders if she made the right choice in following the escort group to this place. Feeling a strange warmth run through her body, she closes her eyes and relaxes at his touch. Then the hero says he'll be back soon and looks at the young woman with very strong determination. Right after, the two of them depart at high speed towards the destination they were so eagerly seeking. Left alone, the girl watches them leave with a look of pure concern. Suddenly, the warrior realizes that someone is following their steps and goes on alert. But the villain from the Yuman clan appears right behind them, showing she intends to hunt them down with determination. The warrior mentions that the AK mansion is nearby and asks if his friend's last name was that. Just then, he notices that the young lady is following the group without even knowing where they are going. But the protagonist complains that his partner's speed is too slow for the journey. So the hero places a hand on his companion and begins to transfer his own internal energy. With that, the young man's flow of power enters the scout's body to increase his agility. At that moment, the fighter feels his legs become much lighter than usual. He then hurries to get to the Akka family mansion quickly, leaping across the rooftops. But the young woman following them is shocked by the sudden speed the two have reached. They cross the city like blurs as the sunlight begins to fade on the horizon. Meanwhile, the swordsman maintains total focus on the path, so as not to lose a single second. Then, night finally falls over the outskirts of Chengdu within Sichuan. With a firm step, the duo finally lands in front of the location the hero desired. But the pair soon arrives at the entrance of the AK residence and observes the size of the place. His partner asks if the young man is ready, and he just nods in confirmation. At that instant, the pursuer and her ally arrive, exhausted from trying to keep up the pace. But the warrior finds it strange that there are no guards at the gate of such a large house. Then the door opens, and a man with a very serious expression appears to greet them. He stares at the visitors with a cold gaze, showing he is not to be messed with. With that, the protagonist notices the incredible physical resemblance between that man and his old friend. The stranger says they don't accept visitors, but the scout asks about Jai's whereabouts. The man is shocked to hear his old companion's name, and his expression changes completely on the spot. Then he shouts, asking who they are to be looking for the boy who disappeared so long ago. With that, a heavy, hostile aura emerges, and the scout feels like he's about to be crushed by the brutal pressure. At that moment, the hero watches everything calmly while his traveling partner struggles to breathe. But the young swordsman decides to act before the situation gets any worse for his loyal journeying companion. He moves like a blur to interrupt the oppressive energy that dominates the entire mansion's atmosphere. With that, the protagonist releases his own power to protect his ally from that frightening physical force. In that instant, The young man's gaze turns icy as he faces his opponent without taking a single step back. But this bold attitude only makes the resident of the house even more furious with the stranger. He then seethes with rage as he prepares a heavy counter attack against the boy who challenged him. At that moment, the man shouts, asking how he dares to act with such contempt in front of him. The head of the mansion appears and scolds his brother, asking how many times he has to talk to him about his temper. With tears in his eyes, the attacker apologizes to his older brother and backs away, ashamed of the situation. Watching everything, the villain realizes that the mysterious man has a deep connection with that family. At that moment, the swordsman reveals that the head of the house is actually the father of his late friend, CG. Then, with great sorrow in his voice, the hero confirms that the young Axi Gi is unfortunately no longer with us. The uncle is paralyzed by the revelation, as his hope of seeing his nephew again has just been destroyed. But the boy's father seems to accept this cruel fate and says that deep down, he was already expecting this bad news. He apologizes for the delay and invites the guests to enter the mansion to talk more calmly. Meanwhile, at the inn, the young leader worries about the delay of the two young men who left earlier. Suddenly, the protagonist returns and places a hand on her head in a surprisingly affectionate gesture. The girl blushes, speechless, trying to understand the meaning behind his gentle touch. She closes her eyes, feeling a comforting warmth spread through her body, and forgets her problems for the time being. But the tranquility is short-lived, as the woman from the human clan finds them and shouts that she has finally found them. However, a huge crash interrupts the moment, revealing that there were enemies hidden inside the place. Confusion spreads, and the young Joe becomes scared, realizing her porters might be in danger. Downstairs, a man is brutally taken down, and red stains spread across the inn's floor. The subordinates shout for Chief Joao's takes over the place, with people running everywhere. Panic sets in among the guests, who don't understand the reason for such sudden violence in the place. One of the guards complains that he just wanted to drink in peace, but now he'll have to draw his blade again. The leader realizes the attack wasn't for them, but rather a cold elimination carried out by mysterious attackers. The villain shouts furiously, asking if they think they'll get away unpunished after what they did to the sect. Another enemy mocks the Tang family, saying they've been running like scared dogs lately whenever they see them. The young Joe realizes that this group is the same one that pursued the cargo during the entire journey here. With a wicked smile, the leader says that they chose to continue serving the rival family like dogs. Then he raises his arm and orders his men to take care of everyone there right now. The assailants charge forward with everything they've got, showing how dangerous and violent the Sichuan region has become. The Black Serpent Hall has grown so much that it now devours any other force it comes across. The girl tries to retreat, telling her men not to get involved in that deadly fight and to run. But it's no use, as one of the porters is brutally attacked right before her eyes, with no chance to escape. The leader is in shock, seeing the senseless violence happening to her subordinates in the main hall. One of the bandits approaches her maliciously, asking what a flower is doing in such a rundown place. His accomplice comes over and asks if his friend has already chosen the young lady to be his entertainment for the night. With an icy glare, the young woman orders them to get out of her way immediately, showing no fear. Ignoring the warning, the man tries to touch her, saying he'll treat her well if she's nice to him. He notices her resistance and comments mockingly that the young lady seems to have some sharp thorns. Then the man grabs the girl's wrist tightly, thinking she's just a fragile, ordinary woman. But the chief's expression changes completely, showing she won't tolerate that abuse from anyone. With a quick and precise movement, she twists the aggressor's hand, making him let go instantly in pain. Using the enemy's own strength against him, the young woman violently throws him to the inn's floor. The bandit lies on the floor, completely surprised, and asks who on earth that mysterious girl is. The girl reveals her name and proudly says she is the leader of the Hanum escort in this region. With that, she puffs out her chest to show she isn't afraid of them, even though she's at a disadvantage. But the bandit is surprised, as he didn't expect a simple woman to hold such a grand title. Then the group bursts into laughter and starts mocking her, saying they've never heard of this agency. One of them approaches with a malicious look, says he'll give her special treatment because she's important. The young woman takes a deep breath, trying to stay calm as she knows the danger there is real and very great. Just then, she realizes she can't beat so many enemies and focuses energy into her feet to escape. Then the young woman bolts at high speed, using everything she has to escape that deadly encirclement. The criminals are confused by her sudden escape, and the leader shouts for them to catch her right now. With that, the chase begins, and the villains run after her, laughing as if it were a game. As she runs, the girl wonders if she'll be able to shake off that band of cruel assassins. Meanwhile, at the Ack family mansion, the protagonist group has been invited to a formal dinner. Everyone is seated at the table, but the atmosphere in the room is heavy and full of tension. The patriarch comments that his son would be 20 years old today and asks our young hero his age. The young man answers politely, and his friend is shocked to see the warrior speaking so courteously. At that moment, the scout realizes he is much older than his master and has an existential crisis. But the head of the house returns to the serious topic and asks to know how his son lost his life. The other family members remain silent, awaiting the painful answer about their relative. With a sad look, the protagonist states that the man was his companion and great friend. He remembers the promise they made, where the survivor was supposed to find the family of the one who passed away. The hero remembers the moment his friend questioned that promise with a look of concern. The redhead said he felt he might make it out of that hellish place alive while fighting monsters. But the protagonist tried to cheer him up, claiming they would get out of there together to visit their families. However, the warrior insisted and asked that if he were to fall, his friend should tell his old father everything. His last words were an apology before he departed forever on that cold, dirty ground. Back in the present, the hero reveals that his friend was lost while saving his life in that terrible place. Hearing this, the deceased's father grips the table with so much force that the wood begins to crack. But he holds back his tears and says that falling to protect a friend is a worthy end for his beloved son. At that moment, the clan leader remembers his boy's smile the last time he saw him leaving home. A deep sadness invades his heart as he realizes that was the final goodbye between them. The young swordsman notices the man's pain and imagines the suffering he went through waiting for news. Then the patriarch wipes his face and asks for the young man's name again to confirm who he is. Our protagonist confirms his identity with a firm gaze, showing respect for the man. In a surprising gesture, the man takes his hands and declares that from this day on, he will be his son. The leader's brother is in shock and tries to protest this sudden decision in front of everyone. The hero's friends can't believe what they are hearing, as the young man has always been very cold and distant. The young woman watches everything and thinks that a tough guy like him would never agree to call another man father. But to everyone's surprise, the warrior accepts the proposal right away, leaving the group speechless. With a slight smile on his face, he looks into the man's eyes and calls him father, with great sincerity. This moves the old warrior, who sees in the young man the image of his lost son, and finally breaks down. The young man feels his friend's presence there and smiles, seeing that he has fulfilled the promise made in the past. At this, the patriarch lets out a loud laugh, as he really liked the new son's direct attitude. He says it's been 10 years since the house has had any joy and orders a banquet to be served at once. With that, the heavy atmosphere disappears completely as servants bring lots of food and drinks for everyone. While drinking, the hero's friend talks with the uncle and learns more about their sad past. It turns out that a decade ago, when the boy disappeared, the family was not well known in that region. The father almost gave up on everything looking for his son, until a mysterious master appeared. To forget the pain of his loss, the man dedicated himself completely to training in a sword technique. Over time, he became very strong and rebuilt the clan, making the family respected by all. But now a dangerous group is taking over everything, and they are preparing for a great war. The scout apologizes for his earlier mistake and mentions the name of the Black Serpent Hall. Upon hearing that name, the villain and the warrior look at each other, as they recognize the organization instantly. They realize it was these same bandits who attacked the escort throughout the entire journey. Meanwhile, the hero chugs the jar of liquor, not caring about the conversation around him, but his mind is far away, thinking about the incredible speed the girl showed when she escaped. He concludes that her rank doesn't matter, as the current situation is much more serious and urgent. The young man knows that no one but him can save the young woman from those assassins at that moment. So he stands up and tells his new father that he's stepping out for a bit, as he has an engagement. The man is confused by his haste and asks where he's going in the middle of a family dinner, but the protagonist vanishes like a blur, leaving the jar spinning on the table, and his friend in shock. The assassins run through the forest with cruel smiles on their faces. Knowing the hunt is almost over, the young woman desperately tries to flee, but the circle closes in more and more around her in the dark woods. At that moment, she realizes her enemies have caught up to her, and panic completely takes over her heart. One of the bandits scoffs, asking if the famous escort leader is just this and nothing more than a weakling. They completely surround her and demand that the girl surrender at once to make their dirty work easier. Then one man moves to grab her, but an invisible force repels his touch at that very moment. The man backs away, startled, and questions what kind of powerful energy is flowing through that young woman's body. The girl herself is surprised by what just happened, as she didn't know she had such protection. She soon remembers the warrior's touch from earlier and understands that he transferred some of his energy to her. Furious with the trick, the villain curses the arrogant young woman and prepares his weapon to attack again. But his accomplice warns him to be careful, because if she's taken out too soon, their fun will be over. The young woman realizes the protective energy has faded, and now she is alone and unarmed against them. She then makes a difficult decision, as she prefers to meet her end, rather than be humiliated by that trash. At that moment, the leader of the bandits advances with a malicious smile, wanting to harm the poor girl. But she points a blade at her own neck and asks her father for forgiveness for not being able to avenge him. Tears stream down her face as she prepares to take her own life and escape that cruel fate. Suddenly, a firm voice emerges from the darkness, saying he arrived just in time to prevent the worst. Our protagonist appears, blocking the attack with his hand and saving the young woman from a certain end. The bandits are paralyzed, not understanding how that man appeared out of nowhere in the middle of the forest. As for the young woman, she feels her legs tremble with relief upon seeing she is no longer alone in this difficult fight. The bandit clicks his tongue, irritated that his fun was just interrupted by the intruder. The hero stands like a shield in front of the damsel to ensure her safety. The villain notices that the strange energy protecting the young woman is gone, and she is completely exhausted. He looks back, worried that this crazy guy has ruined their entire plan. The protagonist faces the girl, who is still in shock from being saved at the last second. With a serious look, the young man says he understands why she tried to do that to herself, but he firmly warns her never to try to take her own life like that again. The young woman lowers her head in shame and agrees to his command, promising not to repeat it. Suddenly, an overwhelming energy explodes on the scene, making the enemies scream in terror. Dust rises, and the bandits are blinded, not knowing what is happening in the middle of the smoke. When the gust of wind passes, the hero remains motionless, emanating a pressure that frightens everyone. The girl looks at his back in awe and wonders what kind of power that was. She admits to herself that she was very reckless to try and end her life in front of the enemies. But in that moment of desperation, the young woman truly thought it would be her final end, and the only person who came to her mind before she departed was our warrior. The young man then questions if she was really going to throw her life away in such a wasteful manner. Annoyed by the conversation, the leader of the bandits shouts, calling the hero an arrogant brat. The criminal charges forward and unleashes a powerful slash aimed at the protagonist's neck. But to everyone's shock, the young man stops the blade using his bare hand, which is enveloped in pure energy. The sword shatters into pieces, and the villain panics upon seeing his weapon destroyed like that. The bandits shout furiously, asking if the young man has any idea who they are in this dangerous region. At that instant, the girl notices for the first time an expression of pure fury on our hero's face. Without saying a word, the young man unleashes his hostile aura while glaring at the group of criminals with contempt. The enemies all charge forward together, thinking their numerical advantage will guarantee an easy victory. Suddenly, the ground begins to tremble violently, and a dark energy erupts from the earth with full force. One of the assassins looks down, startled, as he feels the ground moving on its own beneath his feet. Then, stone spikes emerge from nowhere and strike the villains with brutal and incredible speed. The impact is so strong that the men are thrown into the air, already lifeless and completely wounded. The leader of the band retreats in panic, shouting that the earth itself seems to have come alive. Just then, the protagonist's technique continues to advance, destroying everything in its path. The bandit chief can't believe that a human has control over such absurd power. Then, to everyone's horror, a gigantic creature made of shadows and earth rises up on the spot. The colossal monster devours the remaining enemies, finishing off their army in just a few seconds. The young woman watches the terrifying scene with wide eyes, her body frozen with fear. The swordsman maintains his cold gaze, controlling the beast as if it were the easiest thing in the world. She realizes that this is the Earth Dragon, a legendary sword technique that few have ever seen. With the enemies defeated, the young man tells the girl it's time to leave, as he needs to get back to the dinner soon. Meanwhile, at the Akak family mansion, the mood remains festive, unaware of the carnage outside. The hero's new father drinks happily with his guest, enjoying the rare moment of peace and joy. But not everyone is relaxed, as the disguised villain senses that something momentous has just occurred. The AK family's treasurer, named Yan Baek, seems worried about something at the dinner. He can't stop thinking about our protagonist's mysterious departure in the middle of the party. The man finds it strange that on this very night, with the threat of an attack, the young guest decided to disappear. But the clan chief notices his friend's distress and tells him to calm down and trust the young man. The advisor tries to argue that the Black Serpent Hall has no scruples and is dangerous. He fears that the warrior is a spy sent to take advantage of the patriarch's sadness. The scout and the young woman from the Uman clan overhear the conversation and grow tense with the situation. And the treasurer's fears were not unfounded, as the night was far from peaceful. The enemy clan's elite units march swiftly towards the family mansion. The leader of the Black Moon orders his men to take care of everyone in that residence tonight. Suddenly, a mysterious voice says that their attack will not reach its final destination. The squad leader shouts, asking who dares to challenge them in the dead of night. At that instant, a powerful bolt of lightning cuts through the sky and strikes the villain's camp directly. The men are terrified to see lightning falling from a clear, cloudless sky. The electricity sweeps through everything with absurd violence, completely disintegrating the enemies. Some subordinates scream in desperation as they see their leader being totally annihilated. The protagonist then emerges from the shadows with the girl by his side, emanating an electric aura. He coldly declares that he will not allow anyone to ruin his new father's good mood. The young woman observes the scene and is shocked by the level of power the warrior possesses. She turns to the hero and asks in confusion, since when were the two of them such close relatives? The lightning continues to fall, illuminating the entire forest with a blinding and powerful light. Unseen by anyone, a lookout from the Ake family was watching everything, hidden among the trees. He is paralyzed with fear as he witnesses our hero's immense strength in that battle. With glowing eyes and an expression of fury, the young warrior looked like a demonic entity. The guard runs back to the mansion as fast as he can to report what he just saw. Arriving there, he screams desperately that the enemy units are attacking the house right now. The uncle and the advisor become furious, as they were already expecting a betrayal from that group. The duo from the Uman clan wonders what all that strange noise they heard outside was. The patriarch then smashes the table with his hand, showing his fury over the invasion of his home. Full of rage, the clan chief orders them to bring his sword, as he will lead the defense himself. The protagonist's friend is shocked to see how the man expelled all the alcohol from his system, but the lookout interrupts everything and reports that the enemy has already been completely wiped out along the way. The chief is confused and asks what he's talking about, as it makes no sense for the enemies to have vanished. With a pale face, the guard claims he saw a demonic creature burn them all. The deceased's uncle scolds the young man for being drunk and making up stories at such a serious time. The guard insists, saying it's true, and points to the demon that just entered the room. Annoyed, the patriarch says he's going to show the guard what a real demon is right now. But the lookout trembles in fear and shouts that the creature is right behind the family chief at this very moment. The man slowly turns around and is left speechless upon seeing what is floating behind his back. With a calm smile, the hero announces that he's back and calls the patriarch father, leaving everyone shocked. The enemy sect's leader emerges from the shadows and comments that he had already ordered another rival group to be exterminated. Then, he observes the enormous earth dragon and questions how his own men ended up like that. The lackey reports about the girl who fled, and the chief orders them to bring the young woman back at any cost. But the subordinate swallows hard and says he has some terrible news about the attack on the Ake mansion. With that, he reveals that the 2 elite squads sent there were completely wiped out. The scene cuts to the moment of combat, where the invaders were defeated by incredibly fast strikes, and the mysterious force gave them no chance to defend, destroying the warriors with pure, overwhelming energy. The impact kicked up dust and rocks, showing that our hero's power had swept through everything in its path. Back in the present, the lackey reports that he has already sent men to clean up the site, erasing any traces of the battle. Then the Dark Master turns and decides the entire group must return to the main base now. Seething with hatred, he orders them to fetch a legendary bomb, as he intends to turn the Ak family to dust. The night passes, and the next morning, the patriarch thanks the scout for all the help they provided. Very politely, the group bids farewell to their hosts and begins to walk towards the exit. The young leader follows right behind the swordsman, showing immense gratitude for being saved. Watching from a distance, the disguised villain crosses her arms, complaining about the whole boring situation. She gets irritated at being left out, while the deceased's uncle calls her the warrior's fiancée. But that word catches the woman by surprise, and she turns her head instantly, wanting to understand better. The man sweats, trying to explain himself, and asks if the brunette wasn't the protagonist's future wife. Then the young woman points to the blonde up ahead and asks what her relationship with the hero might be. Scratching his chin, the uncle comments that the 2 of them just seem like very close and affectionate siblings. The mysterious woman smiles and says she'll pretend she doesn't remember anything that happened yesterday. But the young man turns his head quickly when one of the older men asks him to wait. The advisor informs him that before leaving, he must pay his respects to the head of the house. Then the man grabs his sword and comments that the chief must be training in the courtyard now. Cutting the scene, we see the family patriarch very focused as he practices his strikes. With incredible agility, the great warrior destroys the wooden dummy in a single attack. At that moment, the old master reflects on the tense conversation he had the previous night. He remembers asking our hero about his super powerful fighting style. The young blonde quickly explained that this technique came from the great reader of the celestial mechanisms. That revelation left the deceased's father in shock as he realized who the boy's master was. But the swordsman denied everything, saying he only learned the basics and trained on his own. The disguised woman overhears everything and finally understands why the warrior is so overpowered. With a dark look, the young man revealed that the old man was just an enemy and nothing more. This response took the hosts by surprise, as they never expected to hear something like that. Back at his training, the patriarch accepts that the same person who took his son had also helped the clan. The advisors had deduced that those techniques were left as a form of apology. Seething with rage, the chief questions if all this power is the price for his heir's life. However, he continues to attack the dummies, as he knows he needs this strength to survive. With a heart full of pain, the poor man leaps high into the air and asks his lost son for guidance. Then, upon landing on the ground, he notices the arrival of our protagonist along with his friends. The master asks the group what brings them there so early on an important training day. Our protagonist responds directly that he and his companions need to leave soon. With that, The patriarch understands that their departure is connected to the young escort leader. He then looks at the young man and thinks that his son's last friend is now a new son to him. The old master advises him to be careful, because in this world, not everything can be solved with strength alone. With eyes full of emotion, the clan chief asks the young man to take good care of his new grandson. Thus, the group bids farewell to the bonds they formed there and returns to the inn where they were staying. Their subordinates receive them with relief, asking where the two leaders spent the night. The young woman smiles and apologizes for worrying everyone with her sudden disappearance. Her men look at her with admiration as she declares her plans for the future. The scout offers his help in rebuilding the agency, and the girl thanks him from the heart. But a desperate shout interrupts the peaceful moment with very bad news for them. The inn is surrounded by more than 100 men from the enemy sect, seeking revenge. The leader is in shock at the number of enemies and wonders if they came for their group. The hero approaches and asks if the so-called Black Serpent Hall is involved in the commotion. With a calm look, he turns his back and heads to the balcony on the second floor of the building. He was already expecting a counterattack, as the enemy clan had been keeping an eye on the Ak family for a while. Standing high on the balcony, the warrior observes the crowd of soldiers forming on the street. The number of enemies is impressive, but the young man doesn't show a hint of fear. With a confident smile, he says the situation is perfect for what he plans to do now. The hero asks why the army is just standing there doing nothing in the middle of the main street. With that, the group's leader, named Danwal, orders them to take care of everyone and bring the young woman to him. A soldier points to the hero on the balcony and mocks him, saying he's going to jump out of fear. With a defiant look, the warrior balances on the edge of the balcony, facing everyone. Then, without a second's hesitation, the young man leaps toward the crowd waiting for him below. The same soldier who mocked him is shocked to see that the young man really did jump from up there. Dust rises as the warrior lands in the middle of the enemy army, without a single scratch. The band's chief glares at the newcomer with a look of pure contempt and great irritation. Suddenly, the sky darkens, and powerful bolts of lightning begin to appear around our hero. The electricity sweeps through the street, and soldiers are thrown into the air by the force of the attack. The group's leader shouts in fear, not understanding how lightning can fall on a sunny day. But the young man remains at the center of the electrical storm, controlling everything with an icy gaze. With a cruel smile, he declares that today, the Black Serpent Hall will be wiped off the map for good. But our hero remains completely unfazed, his eyes shining with a dark determination. Meanwhile, the young woman watching from hiding wonders why the fighter isn't trying to dodge the blow. He then breaks the silence and reveals that he is actually a great friend of the man's missing relative. The man named Akong stops his movement immediately upon hearing about the old friendship between the two. With that, the protagonist formally introduces himself as Dan Hyong Wu to his colleague's uncle. The escort warrior quickly explains that the young man spent a long time isolated in very dangerous mountains. But the host reveals that his nephew disappeared 10 years ago and asks about his current whereabouts in the world. He anxiously asks if the young man really found his relative during all this long time. Then the hero reflects on the 10 years he spent in that hellish place, battling terrible monsters in the cave. Now, as the agency's leader, that payment represented a new beginning for her. With that, the young man's uncle demands to know where his nephew is with a furious and threatening look. Then the hero says, with a serious look, that he needs to tell him something important about his old friend. He then coldly reveals that his companion passed from this world a long time ago. Upon hearing the news, the man is shocked, and with a look full of hatred, he glares at him. Full of rage, he shouts and lunges at the young man with his weapon in hand, ready to attack. The man unleashes a powerful and swift strike, trying to hit the young man who brought the news. Seeing the scene, the swordsman's friend is frightened by the uncle's violent reaction. From her hiding spot, the villain watches the attack and seems worried about what might happen to him. The young woman then screams desperately, as she doesn't want her new interest to be harmed. So she prepares to jump into the fight and uses her energy to stop the man's attack. The swordsman's friend tries to cheer her up, telling her not to worry because things will get better. At this, her subordinate warns her, saying it's very dangerous to get involved in that mess. But the villain grinds her teeth, as she seems determined to protect the mysterious young man. She then uses her special technique to try and stop the fight before something worse happens. The woman launches her power in their direction, without hesitation to save the young man's life. However, the protagonist doesn't even move and just calmly lowers his head. He then says that it's all right, and that she doesn't need to get involved in the confrontation that's about to happen. The young woman is confused and wonders how he can be okay after taking that blow. It turns out his sword blocked the attack with a powerful energy without him needing to move it. The uncle can't believe his strike was stopped and wonders if it's because he was his nephew's friend. Suddenly, an older man appears and yells at Akung, calling him a fool.